to the races for a touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
This run from Devin Neal. There goes Devin Neal. Touchdown, Kansas.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
To run right up the middle. There goes C.J. Donaldson. Donaldson at a gain of 43.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Down, he throws it up with a flag down for Hudson, who makes the catch. Hudson's off to the races. He is gone. 75 yards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Second down and 9 after the 1-yard run. Another chance for Giddens. He's got the first down and more. Look at Giddens go inside the 10.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Rising out of the pocket, dumps one off. It is caught at the goal line, reaching it out is Keefe. He's got the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go. 365 Sports on this Wednesday afternoon. On the set, Craig Smoke to the left, Paul Catalina to the right, and I'm off to the side in this area that is very comfortable for me because I can, all the trees that I kill with all the paper, it gives me space to have everything spread out. Garrett Ross running the mothership with the Chicago White Sox. They suck. Hat on.
They're terrible. And then they had a chance to, trade off some parts and get something and weren't able to do that. So, yeah, they're bad. By the way, speaking of your paper thing, I got a request and I'm working on it. Brother Printers is interested in sponsoring our show.
I think I use an HP.
Well, look, you're about to use a Brother. We have one over there, but you're about to use a Brother, I think, because if they're going to sponsor the show, we're going to do that. But I think they see you as one of their last bastions of hope.
Okay, like I have a typewriter in front of me, 8-track in the car, that kind of thing.
Stuff,
all right, that sounds good. I've used them before. I have used them before. All right, now we've got a lot of guests again, some that analyze different schools that are a part of the Big 12 and elsewhere. But tomorrow's August 1st. Here's what the Big 12 put up on their Twitter feed. Very simple. August the 2nd, clock ticking, the hourglass. That is the official entry day of the 4 schools that come in from the Pac-12. They've had media days. They've all discussed it. It's all basically all but official. But that is the official day that they are a part of joining the Big 12.
Well, I commend the Big 12 social media person for getting a lot of free engagement from the realignment folks by putting out just some ominous date and not having any details attached to it, because that's
I didn't see how it was reacted to.
That's the reaction that I saw initially. I didn't circle back around to that tweet, but when it first came across my timeline and I saw that, the initial reactions I saw was immediately like, what does this mean? And is this like when the bubble burst with the ACC, and is this when they're going to make some huge announcement? And I can see why you would think that if you don't know any better. I can see why you would speculate on that. But, yeah, I do think that is, in fact, just the official entry of the Pac-12 schools. And so that's all that really is. But that doesn't stop anybody from, taking it and running with it, and that's exactly what happened. But like I said, I understand it, and that's great. I mean, these official entries I know they mean something because they're the official entries, but we've been talking about Utah and Arizona State and Colorado for like months on end at this point, over a year really, and we've already seen them introduced at media days. So, yeah, that's cool. It becomes official, but, I mean, I feel like they have been as introduced as much as they possibly could be up to this point. So nothing really changes other than the ink dries, and, that's great.
I wonder if the Big 12 network, oh, that's right, there's not one, and if those 4 schools throw a massive $2 million party saying that they're now official.
Well,
but I don't know who would do that. I think Colorado might, and the other ones might just say, hey, we're a part of the Big 12, at least for now.
Yeah, I think that, Oklahoma and Texas, they just do things a little bit differently, and they have bigger coffers, and, the move to the SEC is one that I think was worth celebrating because it's an absolutely huge moment in each of those programs' histories. I think this is a big moment for those 4 schools as well, but I just don't think that the Big 12 is as much of that prideful, let's throw a huge celebration and have it on our network thing, much less because they don't have a network like you said. So I don't know why you would do that outside of your own fun and joy, but maybe they'll have like a little merry-go-round on campus and a little party. We just don't hear much about it because it's not promoted the same ways. But yeah, I understood it when those schools did it, and I would not pick on any of the 4 if they chose to do something similar and have a little fair on campus or something, because if you're excited about a move that you're making, celebrate it. And so, the problem, though, like you said, is there's no network, and I don't know if there ever will be. So you're not going to have that platform, but, hey, go have fun.
All right, last night, Baylor football coaching staff, some media relations, and a handful of others threw an event at Terry Black's Barbecue, which is in downtown. It's brand new, a very popular place. But they had a Baylor coaches event with some media. And, Paul, you were there. Garrett, you were there. And also I was there, and we were able to talk to some of the coaches. And the best part of the whole night was when Keenan Hall and I, first time I've actually got to meet him. We've talked many times, text a lot. But he walked up to me, and I brought up the flipping of Caleb Burns, and I brought up a few other things.
Which he couldn't talk about officially, of course.
No, I didn't bring up the player's name. Right. No, you can't do that. But he said, hey, there's more to come. We're going to bring in more. And, I mean, the staff seemed to be very confident. They're on this nice roll. The GXG has a lot to do with it. Jeremy Fudge and John Passavant, David Kay. But it did seem like, and the whole time you'd see like Keenan would leave the room and get on the phone, or Pallage would be on the phone, or Kevin Curtis would be on the phone, et cetera, Dallas Baker, on and on and on. But I had a chance. It was great to get to just talk to some guys off to the side. Dave Aranda was funny because last year we did this event. Paul, where was it at? It was at Rooted.
It was at Southern Roots.
The Root Canal or whatever.
Yeah.
Southern Roots. And they had games. And they played games. And again, there's food. I think it was pizza. And then if you want to have a beer or 2 or 5, whatever, you can. But they played games. He goes, last year we played games and we went 3-9. We're not doing that this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you get put on a team with people you don't trust or like.
Yeah,
that can happen as well.
Was that mentioned as part of the problems a year ago?
No, that was just my
I gave Paul
personal
hell.
thing.
I gave you hell for a week.
yeah. So I didn't pick it, but anyway, I got to talk to Matt Pallage a lot, and I talked to for a long time Jake Spavital, and I asked him, and because he was just a head coach at a G5 school, I was really curious his perspective on the walk-ons. Now, he said that anytime when he was at Texas State and somebody came in and said, hey, Coach, Kentucky just offered me $150,000, he's like, well, go to Kentucky, man. Like, I'm not going to – I can't do it. I'm sorry to lose you. And he's like, they would come in tears, and he's like, look, I know it sucks, but, like, it is what it is. I can't fight it, which I guess is the best way to look at it and not be fatalistic.
Right.
But I also asked him about the walk-ons, and he said the best part about the walk-ons is you have a culture of kids fighting to earn a spot. And now he's like, it's not about so much the 25 guys that they're losing. It's the way that those guys are on the team. And now, yes, they've got 20 more guys, but those guys are all getting scholarships, and you lose that little bit of edge. And now, the 105th guy is going to ask for something that he would have never even had the balls to ask for in the past. And it's those kind of things I think culture-wise they're worried about. Not so much the overall roster because, look, 125, 105, I don't think that really matters. Scholarships is more. It's that they're going to have a tougher time building the culture than they did before.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the recruiting thing as well that you mentioned at the top, but I think that's a great explanation. We were wondering, what's the big deal? And the lack of walk-ons, why would that be so concerning unless you're just an institution like Nebraska where you've really flaunted that and that's a part of your DNA? Why would that be such a big deal, having more scholarships? But that makes a lot of sense as to why it could be problematic. And I think in most cases that 105th guy who's all of a sudden thinking he's got room to ask for something is going to be on another team the next year because you can only play 11 guys at a time. So you have all these extra scholarship players, but the odds of all of them seeing the field now, like, it's going to be the same the way that it was before. It's just that some of the guys who were playing that were walk-ons are now on scholarship. So I don't know if that'll command enough, like basically being a primary special teams guy to keep your scholarship year to year. So, I think that should probably be less problematic for the most part. But, yeah, I certainly can see where some of those problems might arise when guys are thinking that because they're scholarship guys and there's bigger rosters, they can demand more. But particularly, more than that, the culture part of it, that makes a lot of sense. To not have the work ethic and the blood, sweat, and tears and doing it for the love of the game type of attitude in your locker room and have that to point to and kind of humble some of maybe the guys who are getting everything once in a while and be like, hey, this dude's not getting jack. He's paying for school. He's out working your ass. Like those kind of moments, like to miss out on that. Yeah, I do think that is actually a subtraction. And so that's a really good point.
I will miss those announcements that they do sometimes when there's a team meeting about somebody becoming on scholarship or added to scholarship, the 12th man, and that tradition, that person now just becomes, I don't know if that changes or not at A&M, but it's good that you were able to get that from a coach so he could explain exactly the good and or also the concern. Craig, you were going to loop back around to recruiting? Yeah,
you mentioned Keenan Hall and just the success that they're having and all that, and without getting into details, he's clearly ruffled feathers around the rest of the league. That there's some other schools that don't love the success that they're having right now and have vocalized that on social media. And I just think that that's the response that he apparently had without divulging too much of just like, we're not going to back down and we're not going to like not do our thing. And if it bothers you, so be it. But like, they're not doing anything that's against the rules. They're not doing anything that's out of pocket. They're operating, quite frankly, behind everybody else and just now catching up to the way a lot of it was being done, and they're having success, and it's bothering some folks, but I just find it funny, and I find it funny that they find it funny, and, you got to go out and win games ultimately, or none of it matters, but I love their response to some of the criticism, and guess what? Would you rather have criticism for landing multiple 4-stars, over a month's period, or would you rather be the team who's getting criticized for being inactive and not having great NIL and not landing guys and not recruiting well? So, I see, well, you're just paying players. That's the whole thing now. That's the whole deal.
It's one thing that when you're ahead of the curve and you can kind of be the bully and kind of brag about it, then all of a sudden the kid you've been picking on, and there has been some of that, all of a sudden they fight back and they start winning some of those battles and flip somebody. Yeah, I was told last night we are no longer going to be bullied for how we recruit. No, that was basically the quote.
I think that's great. That's how they need to approach it. And look, we have this all this available to you. Yeah, there's no that's not the same as it was. It's not like some schools are paying and some schools are like, we would never. No, everybody's paying. So that's
except for Clemson.
Yeah, they're paying. They just don't go.
No, they're paying their own guys.
They're paying their own guys. But I'll tell you this, especially when you go back to the criticism that Craig had of, would you rather be criticized from the outside or by being when you get criticized for being lazy, that's your own fan. So Soki, if I walk out of this studio and somebody who doesn't like the show goes, hey, Catalina, you suck, I'll be like, okay. But if you told me, Paul, you really suck at this, that would hurt me more because it happens in here. So your fans criticizing you hurts a whole lot more than the other guys doing. And in fact, the other guys criticizing you, that tastes delicious.
No, and now that shoes a little bit on the other foot. We'll see how it plays out. There's a long way to go, man, for the class of 2025. But it was interesting just kind of some of the barking after they flipped Caleb Burns from Texas Tech. And, Aranda's quote, I think, set a lot of that on fire because now, everybody's, oh, how's Baylor? Well, they're paying players, going back to that. But it's working. It's legal. It's all fair game. And there's nothing disingenuous or dastardly about it. It's just that yeah, the shoe's on the other foot now, and their success is bothering some folks. So I think just mostly that throws a little gasoline on the Big 12 recruiting fire and creates, a bit more.
Hey, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's a
Push each
positive of
other.
it. I think the more competitive you can be recruiting, then that's best for all the prospects and best for the schools to be at their best. So, yeah, I think it's great that this is creating a bit more of a battle in the fire of recruiting right now across the league.
I want to get to 2 or 3 more football notes. We'll do that in a second. Today, our first guest off the top is going to be Colt Barber, like at 3:35 or 3:40. He writes columns and articles on Sikkim365.com. He's one of the partners with Ashley and Brian. He's coming on with us. And by the way, pretty good news on 365 Sports hats that we will have available and also up in the store. We talked about that a couple of months ago. But Garrett has something so cool. He's at that media event. He went home, his son Parker wearing the Baylor hat that we all picked up as we walked out the door. I gave one to Craig, who has it next to him on the set. Paul got one, and so I brought it in. I saw Garrett put this picture up, so I had gotten 2. One for me, but I don't wear a lot of hats unless I'm playing golf, and also got one for Craig. Tell us how Parker's reaction to that hat.
Man, he was so excited. So I came in the door, and as soon as I walk in, he just snags it from me. And he's like, this is mine, this is mine. And he usually doesn't do that. And we go out to play ball. We usually go out every night to play ball. He immediately grabbed his toys, grabs his hat, throws it on. He gets up this morning, and we go to take my daughter to work. He immediately grabs his hat, and he's all excited. And last night, because I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years, so I asked Coach Aranda and I asked Brent Ingram, the head of the SID for football, about bringing Parker out to meet the team and stuff, and they were all for it. They said they're happy to do it, bring him out. So I'm excited for that. I got to tell him about that because every time we drive by the stadium, he's like, football, football. So he's pumped for this upcoming season to go out and meet the team.
Well, that's cool. Craig, you have yours on the set. There, you can see it. To his left, he's wearing a Rangers hat, but also the
cool
Baylor hat with the Nike slogan, or Nike insignia, logo on the side. So good for Parker. That's awesome. He's going to be able to also meet the team.
Yeah, no, that's a very cool gesture. I know they have folks out there quite a bit for various reasons, visiting, parents of recruits or, just people who are connected to the program or, whatever the case may be. They're pretty good about that, so I'm glad that they're accommodating you and your son, and you'll be able to go out there and enjoy a practice, hopefully get a Saturday or something.
That's what I told them to do. Let's do a Saturday and run it. They like that.
That makes sense.
So this is great news for Houston, and for the first time, I believe, ever in program history, Kashawn Henderson from Legacy High School down near Houston. Remember, Michael Bishop coaches this team. He was named a 5-star, and according to this note, for the first time that Houston has signed, or at least has a commitment for a composite 5-star player. We asked Michael Bishop about him when he joined us about a week ago. So there's a hell of a nice note for Houston and Willie Fritz and their recruiting cycle.
Yeah, first 5-star since Ed Oliver. I guess the composite gets into the weeds of was he a 5-star across the board and that whole kind of thing across every website. But yeah, Ed Oliver was a 5-star, and this I guess is just
The composite's a new thing.
He's officially a composite and first 5-star. Okay, that I heard you wrong. First 5-star since Ed Oliver and officially a composite. I thought it was their first composite 5-star, so I misunderstood. No. But yeah, he's a great player. You're right. When Michael Bishop was on a couple of weeks ago, I asked Michael about him and got a pretty lengthy response from what I recall of him talking quite a bit and quite positively about Kashawn Henderson. So yeah, he's a great player. I think Houston's got a real gem. But also a lot of work on their hands to make sure that they retain that gem throughout the next few months and longer because he's still a young guy. He's, 2025, right? So got a ways to go there. He's got a lot of people across the country, and even more I'm imagining now. I'm sure everybody's already heard of him, but that just throws a little extra shine on you when you get that 5th star next to your name. So I think they're in for a battle, but for now he's a Houston Cougar, and hopefully he will remain that and put on for Willie Fritz and company and give them a big-time weapon because he's obviously a really good player. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it is, and good for them. And that, hey, you never know what a guy like that can mean to a program, what RG3 brought to the table back when Briles was at Houston, committed to Houston, goes to Baylor, RG3 follows him. We know the rest of the story. How about this when we now hear about these football analysts, and both Todd Graham and Dana Holgerson are going to be joining the staff at TCU. We had heard about Holgorsen. Dave Wilson's going to join us a little bit after 4 today on a few other stories too. But that's adding Todd Graham, who even Sonny Dykes said, listen, he's going to tell you how he feels. He's always been kind of a little bit on edge and gruffy. And then, of course, there's also Holgorsen, and they joined the TCU coaching staff as analysts.
One slight correction. Henderson's at 2026, so they've got a long ways to hold on to him.
Yeah.
That just reinforces my point, actually, that he's got another year on top of what we already thought. But, hey, hang on to him, Cougs, and that would be great. But, yeah, this is a coaching staff where, I don't know, think about hanging around. You probably need a shower afterwards. You got some dudes that are kind of off the wall, but really good football coaches, and this has been a trend here lately of getting more head coaches or ex-head coaches on your staff and helping handle some of the head coaching duties or just helping to, advise on some of the various duties that you have now, especially when head coaches are as spread thin as they are with so many areas they have to devote their time to. That's different from what it was just a few years ago, particularly because of NIL and just the handling of a roster. I think Todd Graham and Dana Holgorsen, you can definitely find some detractors when it comes to those guys. You can also find some people that are like, hell yeah, love those guys. So I think those are really interesting additions. I think net positive, and I don't know how much of a difference they ultimately make for TCU in terms of winning games, but I think you got two guys who obviously know a lot about the game that are not going to be able to help you prepare each week and do a lot of the work that, Sonny Dykes doesn't have time to do or your coordinators don't have time to do. So, yeah, I think much like Gary Patterson at Baylor or any other number of examples out there, this is more commonplace, and those are a couple big hires by Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes is a very pleasant guy. I mean, he really is.
You get my shower comment, though?
I do, yeah. And look, I know Kendall Browse and I know Kaz Kazadi. I would not call them – here's what I think is funny, because – again, Sonny Dykes is really friendly, really friendly dude. And I'm not saying none of these guys aren't friendly when you meet them. We've liked talking to Dana Holgorsen, but they've got some guys that are gruff. Like Kendall Browse, I wouldn't call bubbly or friendly at all. He's a nice guy.
He was for the longest time.
Yeah, but and look, Kaz Kazadi is great to talk to, but again, I would not call him. That's going to be an interesting vibe in that club. I'm not saying it's bad, but you're there with some guys who are.
Well, what is
grizzled.
Patterson?
Yeah,
I mean, the little
yeah. So yeah, that's a group right there.
That's
man.
one of the guys I got to spend a little bit of time with last night. Jared Anderson, who was on Patterson's staff at TCU for the longest time. He's a kid that went to Craig's alma mater at Lee, and we had a great time looking back and reflecting back on a lot of things when he was in school. And Spavital said to me, he knows every high school coach in Texas knows Jared Anderson, who's the tight ends coach. I brought that up only because Patterson and Jared Hall's on the staff. Just a note about last night's event as well.
Was Gary there last night?
No.
So I missed that on him. Dang, that's a real shame.
Well, he knew you weren't coming.
Oh, is that why?
So
we equally decided not to go. Jared, yeah, you said Jared Hall, Jared Anderson.
I said Jared Anderson.
No, you said Hall at the very end. That's all right, though.
Oh, okay.
Just a minor correction. Probably thinking of Keenan Hall as well, and just probably some dude named Jared Hall over the years. But, yeah, there's a lot of that type of thing that comes with hiring some of those guys as well, of the coaching relationships and recruiting and just knowing the area and things like that. But, yeah, that's a wild bunch now at TCU, to be sure. That'd be crazy golf game to go play with those guys. I bet the stories would be
sitting around drinking a beer if they do, or just having shooting the you know what. So this young man has had problems. Agiye Hall, he was at Alabama, he was at Texas, he was not on anyone's roster a year ago, and has been arrested or was arrested for 40 pounds of pot in his luggage at an Orlando airport. He was supposed to play for UCF this fall. That obviously is not the case. Before you guys respond to this, 18 months probation and trafficking charge in Florida. So he was a top 40 recruit out of high school, went to Alabama, then went to Texas, and now we kind of got an idea a little bit about why he flamed out there. I don't think he did much there, but I thought when they added him, it was just another weapon. I thought he had some moments at Alabama. Then last year in the portal, did not find a team. He then committed to UCF, planned to walk on, and then reportedly now is no longer a part of even the UCF program.
40 pounds of weed Like even Garrett thinks that's too. That's excessive. First of all, that would take Garrett. I mean, he would just not be functional for months to get through all that weed. And
no, he wouldn't be functional for months if he didn't get the 40 pounds.
But even for Garrett, that's a lot. And also, weed trafficking in a state where you can buy it, like Florida, I don't know. Like some of this is just. I know you're trying to make money and make it illegally, but this guy's got issues on top of issues.
You know, you can make money as NIL playing college football, and you screwed up that opportunity, and that's a real shame because that opportunity is not coming back anywhere. Most likely, but certainly not if it were to in any shape or form close to what it was when you initially started this whole career. So, yeah, that's really unfortunate. I mean, to go from Texas and Alabama to walking on anywhere is a huge step down, and you would think an ego check and maybe a rock bottom type of a moment. But I don't know Agiye Hall. All I know is that I heard a lot about him a couple of years ago or the last couple of years, and obviously didn't get to see much of anything out of that. Remember, he was a big addition for Bama. He's a big addition for Texas as well, the whole Sark connection at Alabama. He's going to come in and be great, and obviously didn't see much at all of him. Now wasting another opportunity, and with what's hanging over his head, that's the end of that. So, unfortunate. Don't know how you get caught up in all that kind of jazz, and especially, did you say he had it on a plane?
He was trying to get on a plane.
It was in his luggage.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
That's just pure stupidity.
I watched that, what is it, that channel where they show trafficking. They show the people.
It's like a history channel or something that shows that.
It shows all the people coming in from various parts of the country, different countries, whatever. He had 5 catches for 79 yards in 2 years, 1 catch for 7 years at Texas. That's it. No touchdowns, nothing. 5-star player whose career pretty much now you would think is done.
I would imagine so. I don't know who's going to want to take a swing at him again when he's already had his 3 strikes. And again, just the decision this time around is beyond stupid to try and smuggle a bunch of weed onto an airplane. I don't know. I think he needs to dry out a little bit and get his head clear and get some perspective on life, man, because that's just some bad decision-making on top of bad decision-making. So, hopefully we don't hear anything more negatively out of him outside of maybe what he gets sentenced. But, I hope it doesn't get worse than what it already is.
You wonder, and this is not – I went junior college, but you wonder if that's can he get to a junior college if he's been at one school or 2 schools over 2 years? Does he end up going somewhere else?
Can you go to junior college if you were at Alabama, you were at Texas, you were in the portal, then you were committed to USC and planning to walk on, and then you didn't even join UCF, or I said UCF, then you didn't join UCF, and
yes, the answer I think is yes.
I guess you can always go back to junior college, but in terms of your playing ability, I would think that 5 years into a college career would be hard to go JUCO.
He's not going to play this year. You wouldn't think. That's 2 years he hasn't played, and he wasn't really playing even when he was highly rated at Alabama and Texas. Now, Jeff Traylor's a great friend of the show at UTSA, and they've had guys coming after his players, right? Look at the Hall. Here are the players that look at the schools in which they have found players now on his roster as they began their workouts. Kendrick Blackshear was a highly, highly recruited player at Alabama. So you have Alabama, then there's Auburn. With all due respect to my alma mater, we skipped them. LSU, Denver Harris was also, I think, wasn't he at A&M?
Yes, he was.
Yes.
New Mexico.
He was the one that was driving the car around the parking garage, if I remember correctly.
Stanford, Oregon, there's SMU. There's New Mexico, 3 players. Rutgers, Houston, Oregon, TCU, Tech, and UCF. Frankie Arthur was a heck of a player. Bryson Donnell was a highly ranked 4-star running back out of Lee. Legacy, I guess, in Tyler. There's some – DJ Allen is a great player, I think, from Gladewater High School. That's the list of what's been added to his roster. He knows talent. Demetrius Davis, of course, there's that story with him. That's a pretty good list. We'll see how many of those actually contribute and are players for his program.
It's an army of former 4-stars that didn't stick where they were and were big-time signees for their respective programs. I mean, yeah, Bryson Donnell went to the same high school as me. Did not last long in Lubbock. J.J. Sparkman, is he from Lufkin? Or no, I'm thinking of somebody else maybe. But
I think he's from Jacksonville.
Okay. Yeah, but I think he's from East Texas as well. I remember D.J. Allen really well. Yeah, there's a lot of East Texas kids on here now that I'm looking at it.
Well, and that makes sense, Kurt. Yeah.
Guys.
He went to Longview. Sparkman went to Longview.
Okay, yeah, so I thought he was from somewhere in the area.
Pine Tree, maybe.
But that does make sense with Traylor, though, too. It's also like, hey, guys, you're not sticking where you start, but if you're going to land somewhere else, then going towards a Jeff Traylor-led program for a lot of those guys from that area makes a lot of sense. And those are a lot of, named guys. Denver Harris, obviously, you got a pretty edgy guy there who's hopefully learned from his mistakes. Demetrius Davis, I remember when he was a really big Baylor recruit for a little period of time, and I think he picked Auburn over them, and I forget the year that it was that they were recruiting him, but I remember their interest at least, and he was a big get for Auburn. Kendrick Blackshear was a really big deal for Texas and then Alabama. And so, yeah, there's a lot of names, but just guys who haven't panned out. So if he can get that out of them, that talent that was obviously there from the beginning, and get the most out of them that he possibly can, then that could turn into something pretty nasty, quite frankly, because there's a lot of guys on that list that were big-time recruits.
And a lot of times, these guys, their clock is ticking. Like they've been one place or two, didn't work out. Demetrius Davis threw the Hail Mary for North Shore in that incredible one against Duncanville. And then Sparkman's from Pine Tree High School, which is out of Longview. So Frankie Arthur was a player. UCF running back room is pretty crowded, but that's a nice haul that he's been able to get despite the fact he's lost a few players, including the linebacker who is now at the University of Texas. I've always thought that Kyron Drones, we had Jacob Zeno on yesterday, a lot of former Baylor quarterbacks, Shapen, Bohannon around the country. Kyron Drones, Paul, has always been a stand-up individual. I love the family. His dad's a coach at Shadow Creek. And I like the kid. I think he's just really, really cool.
I think he's a very nice kid, and lost by 22 points in a noon game there. So maybe it wasn't as hyped as a night game. But again, maybe you shouldn't say a place is overhyped that trashed you last year. So just saying, maybe leave it out. Now he plays in a place, I will say, that no matter what's going on, Blacksburg is hyped.
Yeah, this is a great place.
It is a great place. So it's not like he is saying this place is overhyped and he plays for a place that, like Stanford, that
is quiet, like a library.
Yes, library quiet. So I respect his opinion. And there are people who are Kyron Jones, and then there are people who are right. But no, it's his opinion. He thought Louisville was better. So.
I'm looking to see if SMU plays Cal, because I don't know if there might be a Guinness World Record for quietest stadium. Cal at SMU. That might be a little bit louder than if it was in Berkeley. But, I think that he's entitled to his opinion. He's been around more of those stadiums than I've been to. I have actually been to Doak, though, and it was for a Florida game, so it was anything but not insane. It was pretty crazy. Remember people in Ricks Happens T-shirts because of Chris Ricks being there at the time and having an affinity for people, coming up with making enough mistakes or I guess just errors to have people create T-shirts that say Ricks Happens on it. So that was during that time period, and that was a lot of fun. But, yeah, I can't speak to a week-in, week-out basis. I hear good things about Blacksburg. He's got every right to feel that way because of where he's played and whether intentional or not. I think he's smart enough to realize he just threw some extra gasoline on potential Florida State Virginia Tech matchup, so maybe he's all for that and embraces that. He's a good player, and I look forward to seeing him play this year.
For once, it's somebody else saying something about Florida State rather than Florida State complaining.
Well, he also he's smart about this. He didn't have to go play there this year.
Well, he
doesn't have to play against them either, unless they get to the conference title game, in which case, then okay.
He's had a good run at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I mean
he really has.
He was early on also starting when they played Florida State, so He had one really long run he didn't score on, and it was one of those things you're like, oh, okay, here's Kyron Drones. That's what, you kind of expected to see. And then as the year went on, he got better and better. Another year in the offense, he's no longer a transfer anymore. He's there. He's playing it.
It's his
he's
team.
their quarterback.
Yeah.
It's his team. So yeah, not surprising that a lot of people are hyping him up, which he's earned.
We need to hit a break, but the last story before we do, Deshaun Foster, remember the very awkward intro at Big Ten Media Days when he just wasn't ready or wasn't so sure, probably had to do a speech and was going to take questions. Here's a T-shirt he was repping today. We're in L.A., which is part of what he was talking about. He goes, a lot of you guys don't know about UCLA football. We're located in L.A. along with USC, so he's got a T-shirt now. Having fun with it at UCLA football practice earlier.
I mean, UCLA's not just in L.A. It's in, like, the L.A. you think of. Like, it's not the Hollywood Hills, but it's close to it. It's like right next to it. It's right next to Bel Air.
It's not that far from Bel Air.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that far from the Strip and all. I mean, it's like right where you'd want to be if you want to be like in the whole. This is the Hollywood LA part in some ways. So having gone to that campus and toured some of the facilities, it was like 20 years ago, but it was really nice back then. UCLA just doesn't have, though, that cool factor when it comes to football like they do in basketball or in some of the Olympic sports, and maybe he can change some of that. I think LA is a pull for some guys. It's obviously not going to be a pull for a lot of others, but we've seen plenty of guys have success there. I have no expectations when it comes to Deshaun Foster and UCLA in the Big Ten. There are so many question marks, but, good luck to him, and glad he was able to get that media days kind of fiasco behind him and have a little fun with it, and let's see what he can do. But that's a spot that I think would be pretty attractive for a lot of guys because of the education, the location, and all of that. So
we've been able to go tour that campus, and it really is. It was interesting though when we went to Poly Pavilion. It's an old like the old Boston Garden type, and I don't know if they've renovated it or cleaned it up or fixed it up or spruced it up or not, but it was historic, and that campus has got views everywhere as far as being L.A. and it's a great place. But there we are with Deshaun Foster. By the way, we have the following guest. I mentioned Colt Barber coming up around the corner. Also, Jed Drenning, who sent us a lot of analytics and data about the Big 12, and some of it is just you can't get enough of it. He joins us today. Hans Olsen, he and I joked about how I butchered his name the last time he was on. He'll get on, he's the color analyst for BYU Radio and does cover Utah, so we'll have him today. Dave Wilson, ESPN, and also Steven Johnson on TCU and Chris Karpman on Arizona State. All of that plus Paul's Top 5, a lot to get to, and this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace through this week. Their specials include USA catfish fillets at $6.69 a pound. 10% off on all fresh shrimp. Chicken wings at $3.50 a pound. Bacon ends and pieces, $1.99 a pound. Last night when we were at that event, they had brisket. They had all sorts of barbecue, but they also had some bacon ends, and it's delicious. Tri-tip at $5.20 a pound. T-bone steak, $12.50 a pound, and a porterhouse steak, a little bit larger, at $13 a pound. They have a butcher shop. They have a bakery, fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Also a coffee shop where you have a drive-through window if you want to get yourself a cup of coffee. Waco Custom Marketplace. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family have been in the restaurant-type business for years, decades. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. And before I close it out, they're also a great place for you to start looking for what you need for tailgating, whether it's to heat up the smoker or your charcoal grill or the product itself. Waco Custom Marketplace.
Make this the summer of Ram at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home in a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star for just 2.9% for 72 months with no payments for 90 days. Plus, first responders get an extra $500 off at Allen Samuels.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
This segment brought to you by Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, Richard Carr Motors, people you can count on. Colt Barber, one of the 3 guys that started the overall umbrella of what we do, Sikkim365.com, with a lot of news and the message boards and more, and even, of course, this show. Joins us on 365 Sports, Craig Smoke and Paul Catalina. Colt, thank you very much for your time. You've been covering Baylor for a long time. How would you describe what they've been on for the last 2, 3, or 4 weeks when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, Smoke, like you said, I've been doing this for really 15 years in depth. I've followed Baylor football a lot longer than that. And you look at the guys that they're signing, and you guys are right in the middle of when Art Briles was there and some of the classes that he was bringing in. And I don't know that the stretch that they're on right now, and not just in terms of players with offers, but overall rankings. I mean, it's just been incredible. And then considering it's off of a 3-win season, I haven't seen it. It's unprecedented in a lot of ways. I mean, you expect a program like University of Texas, Alabama, or someone like that to have a down year, bounce back with a good recruiting class and just continue to build. But for a program like Baylor, I think it just shows the high-end potential that they have, and they've always had. And you throw on NIL on top of that, and what GXG has done, and they're right in the thick of it. And now it's time to win on the field, because if they can win on the field this fall, you're building out something that is sustainable, and you start competing with the rest of the Big 12 and the teams that are in there, and Baylor will recruit on par with all of them if they continue this up.
Colt, they've gotten guys who didn't even have, who released infographics 2 weeks before, and they weren't even on there. Right, and they're coming in seemingly out of nowhere because of all that you mentioned. But how important is it for this coaching staff to stay in place so they can continue that momentum, and winning on the field, like you said, is the thing that makes that happen?
Well, at the end of the day, if you're not winning, recruits are probably not going to come. But what they're selling is a vision. They're selling a vision to the players on their team. They're selling a vision to the fans, and obviously now it's trickled into recruiting. And you get a guy like Taz Williams, who has just gone above and beyond to recruit. And believe it or not, he's the guy that you mentioned. Baylor was not even considered, and then at the last minute, he's picking Baylor. And you get this momentum going in college football. And sometimes it's just undeniable. And I don't know how that will translate to the year, but this coaching staff knows they have to win. But when you see it trickle into recruiting, more than likely that vision's selling to the guys that are on the team as well. And I don't say that lightly. I just you have to re-recruit the guys on your team and re-motivate them to do something. But if it's NIL, that's one piece of it, right, for recruiting. But you also have to sell a vision. And they're selling something there that I think they're selling to their team. And the wins have to come. I mean, if Dave Aranda doesn't go back to a bowl game this year, and that'll be the fourth time in 5 years that he hasn't done it. He did go to one in 22, but he had a losing season that year. But if they can't get back to a bowl game, I think that's where it ends. I had felt like they needed to do better than just getting to a bowl game. But this type of recruiting momentum, that is part of coaching college football. And if you have that success in coaching and recruiting, then that is part of your resume and you're building something there. And for them to be able to do this is impressive. And I think the on-field results have to come. I just don't know if it was necessarily as high of a clip as it was 9 months ago that was needed.
Don't worry about it, Cole. Nobody remembers the Armed Forces Bowl from a couple years ago, except for Air Force. They're the only ones that still think about the Armed Forces Bowl. But, yeah, you kind of forget that was also in that mix as well of bowl appearances. David K was a big move behind the scenes. They reshuffled some things in terms of the way that they did their NIL. You brought in a guy like Keenan Hall. It seems like it's really been a combination of things, but what do you think are kind of the one or two major factors that have really shifted this thing in such an extreme direction?
You know, I had a recent conversation, and I was asking about recruiting, the NIL, and I thought it was really fascinating. It was Dave Aranda's willingness to recruit, and not like he wasn't willing to recruit previously, but it's almost like maybe when he became the defensive coordinator again, that light switch flipped a little bit, and he said, man, I can get back to recruiting or whatever it was. And his phone calls are more regular. He's more involved in recruitment now than he was previously. So I think, one, the head coach being able to re-involve himself in stuff is massive. But I think in general, you have a coaching staff that was kind of caged up because the approach that Coach Aranda was going to have. And I say that, I know there's a lot of fresh faces. I knew there's offensive scheme that's changed. But in general, I think you're kind of seeing what was the potential was. But Coach Aranda's mentality, in a lot of ways, might have been holding them back. And now you see Dallas Baker. I mean, he's all over social media. He's very vocal. He has been that in the past, just in different ways. You see the recruiting staff, they're becoming more vocal. And I think that's the reins loosening a little bit, and Dave Aranda's approach for the program changing a little bit. And they're kind of getting some swagger. I mean, there's coming, little shots going back and forth across the interwebs that we haven't ever seen. And that's good because I think for a program like Baylor, they need that additional motivation, that extra swag that they kind of thrived on when they first started this stretch of the best history of college football for Baylor University. They had that. And I think they have to refine that. They have to rekindle that swagger. And I think it starts with Dave Aranda. His personality not necessarily has changed. I think he's just going in a different direction, and he's going to see if it works. And right now, you talk about winning the offseason. Every move that he's made seems like it has worked. There's some that have got overturned. You talk about offensive line coaches coming and going, but in general, overall, they have won this offseason. But like we said, we got to get back to the winning on the field now. I think they set themselves up in position because you talk about recruiting. It started back in December with the transfer portal. They added a lot of guys that are going to help them win this year. Yeah,
I think that when you mention the swagger, I just think that in the last 5 to 6, 7 years, depending on the coaching staff, the year of Grobe, which was a year of just like everybody was sitting on their hands and just trying to get through each day. And then what Rule brought to the table, which is a different angle, and then, of course, Aranda. But I kind of got the impression from coaches saying that we are no longer going to just get bullied on social media. We're not going to get bullied by people saying or taking pot shots at us. We're going to have the ability to fire back. They're going to lose some recruiting battles. They're going to lose probably more than they win. But I kind of got that impression, so it's interesting you brought that up because I think they're full throttle into that.
Yeah, it does. And you want your, as a coach, I have no doubt that you want your team to handle themselves with class. There's that fine line of having edge and having class. But I think Baylor needs to be kind of on the opposite side of that edge. They don't need to toe up to it. They need to toe over it a little bit and find that, because last year they had a young team. I mean, there's a lot of youth, and I think a lot of people say, well, when you get older, you get a little bit more edgy. I think we all kind of understand what that means. But you also have to cultivate that type of atmosphere and say, we're going to do this. And, man, there's no doubt that the players are watching on social media. They're all over social media as it is, but they're seeing that. Some of the guys that they added in the transfer portal bring that. You talk about Snacks Johnson 2 years ago before he went to Arkansas. He was kind of that, and then they lose it. They lose guys like that, and they haven't added it back. But now they're back in the program. You're not talking about bad kids. It's just that's how they play. They play with that swagger. And I think it all kind of correlates. I think it goes back to Coach Aranda saying, okay, this did not work how I wanted to do it. Now we're willing to do it. Let's try this different way. And it has really taken its own life in the last 9 months.
Colt, when you said guys that are going to help them this year that they've gotten, guys from the portal, they've had to go in because some of the guys they got from the portal are out for the season or medically retired. How do you think that affects them going forward when it actually comes to getting 6 or 7 wins this year, at least to rebound from the last year and a half that's been abysmal?
Yeah, I mean, with such a large portal class, you expect there to be some misses. You take chances on guys. Like you talk about Michael Trigg from Ole Miss, who has just had a roller coaster of a career. But anybody that knows college football recruiting, for one, but also just in general, how good of an athlete and the potential that he brings. And so, like, you have guys that you're saying, yeah, we're probably not going to hit on all of these, but if we take 4 of them and we hit on one of these guys that kind of bring this different mentality, then you're kind of cooking with grease there. I mean, it's going to take off. And a kid like that, or Steve Linton from Tech, who was at Syracuse before, just a natural pass rusher, 2 years ago, last offseason, neither one of those guys are considered. I mean, Snacks Johnson is a great example, and they've had some guys retire. Kirk Deniker was obviously a tough one. They really were high on him. The good news is that even before we knew it, I think good news. Obviously, that's it's not good news, but the staff knew in advance that was probably coming, so they had time to prepare for it. Coach Miller on the offensive line brought in 3 more guys in the summer to kind of offset that. And but yeah, the approach is so much different. And you start talking about junior college guys, like they really went to the opposite end of the spectrum, and now they just have to balance that out. Because if you rely on it too much, I mean, we saw that with TCU last year. I mean, their whole mindset was let's just rebuild it from the top down and not from the bottom up. And I think what Baylor has right now is that they have built a foundation of culture. They have a young group that's really strong. I mean, if you really look back at what that freshman class did, the redshirt freshman class last year, there's a lot of potential there. Now they're adding some different layers on top of it that are the upperclassmen. And obviously that starts with potentially DeQuan Finn and what he brings to the table, the transfer receivers to kind of gel with that offense. But in this day and age, it doesn't take a lot to say, hey, we changed our offense. There's not this, patiently waiting for this offense to take hold anymore. I mean, you go to the portal and you're ready to go. Same can be said for defense, but fortunately Baylor's not changing too much schematically on defense. I mean, there will be changes, but I don't think Baylor fans should have to wait in this day and age with everything that you have access to in terms of the portal, finding quarterbacks. You can go buy a quarterback essentially, and what Baylor did was DeQuan Finn to come in and run an offense that he's already familiar with to an extent. So transfer portal is great. I just think they have to find a way to balance it. And we'll see how it takes hold this fall.
All right, so you brought this up, and I brought this up yesterday on the show that Colt, you, Craig, Grayson, and also Travis did what would you define, what was it, Craig, define as
a successful
season? And I think a couple mentioned a bowl game, and then, Craig, you mentioned, can we have fun?
Well, does it look like a team that's enjoyable to watch?
And then Travis brought up, you'll know when you see it. And I kind of liked all of them. Colt, do you think it's possible with this recruiting surge that if Dave Aranda goes 5-7, but it's all the way to the end, that there's a chance he would stay on for another year to keep that class together, or can you do that?
If you truly believe that Dave Aranda is a good football coach that can develop assistant coaching staffs, and the real struggle was top-end talent to make you competitive, then yes. If that's truly what you believe, because what is he doing right now? He's addressing a talent issue. If that's your perspective, he's upgrading the talent. So you go 5-7, and you have 5 of those are one score losses, and you lost your quarterback at some point in there. Like, I think you take that into consideration. Now, take back 9 months ago, if Baylor never starts recruiting any better than they had in the last couple of classes in general, then I don't think you have that same perspective, because the talent's not upgrading, right? But at 5-7, you're recruiting a top 25 class potentially. You have 4 stars coming out your ears comparatively to the last 10 years. Like, your mindset changes. It has to, because that's obviously a key part of college football. I mean, if you're not recruiting, you're not competing with the big boys. And I know the Big 12 has changed, but even within their own conference, you better be at the top, because that's what's going to drive your championships and success. So I think there's a pathway to saying, 5-7 Dave Aranda can be retained. I personally don't think that happens, just because I don't see you going 5-7 without there being some ugly losses and some spiraling out of control depending on how the season goes. So I think there's a pathway. I don't think it's realistic. But I'm with Craig, man. I think for a team to have fun, they're probably going to have some success on the field. Last year, there was not a lot of that, so it wasn't very fun. So I think they correlate so much. And I think if this team can find that a little bit of momentum, a little bit of swagger that they can play with early in the season, who knows where it goes. I mean, they have the talent. I truly believe that this team has the talent, especially on offense, to take off and just kind of turn the tables from a year ago where the offense just was in mud the entire season. The defense probably never really got in the groove and felt like they wanted to be in a game because of the way the offense kind of, chugged along very slowly and methodically. And just, to be frank, didn't do enough to help the defense have any confidence. So I'm anxious to see it. I mean, we're here. The fall camp practice starts tomorrow, and we don't have a ton of access, but I think we're going to get glimpses of it and hear from the players about what the changes have been over the summer. And I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, one way or the other, something's going to happen this fall, I believe.
All right, last thing, and this is a merchandise thing. Colt, we're going to have slowly but surely here, like sooner rather than later, the in-store merchandise for new hats and stuff available?
Yeah, so right now, all the 365 Sports, we have 3 or 4 versions of the hat available right now. You can hop on and buy those. They're $19. We'll add more and more, just kind of different, colors to match possibly your school. And some generic whites and grays and stuff. But yeah, we're adding them in there. If you feel like supporting, it would be a great way. The brand's kind of taking off on us. We just want to capitalize on it. If you're a big follower of the show, we appreciate the support. But the hats, and there's some T-shirts available on there that you can hop on and order. Reasonable price. Like, we're not trying to make a bunch of money off of it. We just want to kind of grow the brand. And it's on 365sportsradio.com, and you can hop on there and buy one, and it'll be out pretty quickly. Once you do.
And I will put a link in the...
Yeah, do that to the chat room, Paul. Thank you. We'll also have some that will be given away. Stay tuned for that. I know Kim Coulter is going to buy a chunk. He loves the all-white, and you and Kim and I went back and forth on that earlier today. Thanks for your time, Colt. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I'll have a good one.
Colt Barber, Sikkim365.com, and also 365 Sports. 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock hour, we'll start with Dave Wilson from ESPN. We'll go West Virginia and BYU too, and Utah. This is 365 Sports. And Dr. Rob Maxey, in fact, I've been trading a couple of text messages with him. I've been saying now for as long as I have been promoting or endorsing them, and I have been inside their state-of-the-art imaging machine, that the average MRI is about $1,100. And I asked him this, I guess it was yesterday, is that still the price? And he thinks actually because of deductibles and more and et cetera, that it's probably gone up. And he was going to get back with me on exactly what that might. Let's say it's $1,150 or $1,200 or $1,500, but $1,100 is the average cost of an MRI. Ideal MRI in Waco. off of I-35 in the southern part in the Central Texas marketplace, $497 or less every single time. I have had 3 or 4 MRIs, and it's always been a really comfortable and even relaxing experience. And I am claustrophobic, and I have been spooked before by an MRI machine. But the techs, the specialists, those who greet you when you walk in the door or set your appointment are just fantastic people. And they put me in a position where I'm good. And then I can't wait to put the headsets on like this, and I blare out Journey or Styx or whoever to make sure I can't hear some of the noise that goes on inside of an MRI imaging machine. $497 or less. Find out what is bothering you, where your orthopedic surgeon or your doctor wants a better look at idealmri.com.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed. Smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long distance meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Dave Wilson, ESPN.com. is the one that had the story today about both Dana Holgorsen and Todd Graham joining the TCU coaching staff, and he joins us on 365 Sports. We're going to discuss quite a bit of college football. Dave, thanks for your time. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, David Smoke, 365 Sports. So we had heard about Holgorsen. When did the Todd Graham discussion enter the picture for Sonny Dykes and TCU?
Well, over the years, I've been around TCU a couple of times, and Todd has been around. And so they have a relationship that goes back a while. And, Sonny's a pretty laid-back guy, but he said, he valued Todd's insight because Todd doesn't exactly pull punches. And so he said the worst thing you can have as a coach is to have a bunch of yes men around you. And he said, I always like having people from different perspectives. And so, it's very similar to Gary Patterson working with Baylor. It's very similar to all these analysts that go to Alabama to work for Nick Saban. They want to stay in coaching. They want to be involved. And, in Sonny's case, in 2017, he was an analyst for Gary Patterson at TCU. So it's kind of full circle there. Working with people you trust and you value their input. And I think that that's something that he's been talking about for the last, several months. He's mentioned Holgorsen in the past. They obviously were joined at the hip. They were co-offensive coordinators under Leach at Texas Tech, so they know each other really well. And I think there's just a comfort level sometimes. And, in this business, it's a small world, and guys help each other out, and they try to keep them in and help them get other jobs. But in this case, he had a disappointing year, and he wanted to take a look at everything.
Todd Graham, the ending at Arizona State wasn't kind of like it was for Dana at Houston. And he's been out of the loop for a little while, but he got his start in Texas. He tried to recruit hard in Texas. He's been kind of known as a guy who's a little bit bristly, to say the least. What kind of edge do you think that those guys particularly bring kind of attitude-wise into that coaching staff?
One of the interesting things about Graham is obviously he's had his stories about, signing a contract at Rice and leaving 2 days later to go back to Tulsa, and he left at Pitt after 1 year. And there's an ambition there that I think is pretty brazen. But if you go back to Todd Graham's history, he's hired a lot of great coaches. He hired, he was the first guy to give Dan Lanning a job. He's hired guys everywhere he's been that are good coaches. So he has the talent for that. And I think coaches respect that when you have an eye for even coaching talent, not just football. And so, it's funny, in 2022, when TCU went on that run, I did a story about sort of how they put that year together in Dykes' first year there. And he told me in the preseason, Todd Graham came in to sort of look over the team and the program with him. And he told us we're going to win the conference. And he said, I was shocked. I was like, he told me that in like August that year. Todd Graham was just here, and he thinks we're going to win the conference. And he's like, I don't know what he sees, but I hope he's right. And, they ended up having a great year. And so, and he said, similarly, back at SMU, he came in year one, and he said, your players aren't good, your coaches aren't good, you're not going to be any good. And he said, we went 5-7 that year. So he said, he's kind of savant-like in that way, and I just value his insight. And so that is a relationship that he believes in, and he trusts his judgment, and he's been right so far. So he's like, why not? He wants to work, and I need the eyeballs, and so why not? And I think that's a big part of it. And that's the edge that he brings is he's unvarnished. Sonny said it diplomatically. He said, Todd is very direct. And I think that is it.
Dave, so for people who I think probably most people watching this show know what an analyst does, but for those perhaps tuning in for the first time or something along those lines, what will be kind of on the plate of Holgorsen and also Todd Graham when it comes to the week-to-week, the day-to-day, and what they're going to be doing?
Yeah, I think analyst jobs differ. There's I've heard of some of Saban's analysts. Like there was one guy that I talked to one time, and I don't want to say his name, but he's actually a offensive coordinator in the Big Ten now. But he told me once when he was one of Saban's analysts, his entire job was to compile the quarterback binder for recruits. And that's all he did year round was work on a binder of quarterback recruits. And Nick would call him in and say, all right, turn to a page and a random guy and ask me about him. And then Saban would rattle off everything he knew about the guy and then say, okay, let's call him. And so it's like there at an operation that deep and that big, obviously you can stack those guys. TCU and Baylor traditionally haven't had, 40 staffers in off-field roles like those programs do. But I think you're starting to see that a little more. It basically is another set of eyes from a coach that you trust or somebody who's a expert in one thing. And in this case, what I found interesting about what the TCU plan is he wants Graham, who is a longtime defensive background, to work with the offense to basically say, here's how I would attack you right now in that formation. Here's what I would do to you, to basically prepare them for here's what teams are going to do to you. And then similarly with Holgorsen, he wants him to work with the defense to be like, here's how I would attack this, or here's where people are going to see your weaknesses. So it's just basically you have they've added 4 former head coaches to that staff after a 5-7 season. And he basically is like, he wants experience, he wants eyeballs, he wants to change the program. And so analysts dig deep on sort of the minutia of the program.
I wonder how many head coaches, for example, Aranda brought in Gary Patterson. We know Nick Saban, and you brought that up, used to have former, like the rehabilitation tour, including now Steve Sarkisian, who, of course, is having a nice run at Texas, among others, and UT's had theirs. How many coaches you think out of the 130 plus in the FBS, Dave, would not have a former head coach as an analyst or on their staff because of ego?
Yeah, I do think that is interesting. I mean, you guys see, we deal with a variety of personalities as coaches. I think as those go, Sonny Dykes is one of the more laid back guys. And so, those are very strong personalities. And so basically I said, these are strong personalities. These are guys that have no problem giving their opinion on any subject generally. I mean, their press conferences were always, entertaining. And he said, well, yeah, that's what you want. You don't want a bunch of people that just sitting around going, oh, yeah, you're the greatest. I agree with you. I want people to challenge what we're doing. And so I do think that's the thing. Now, obviously, you have to have the confidence and you have to be able to run a ship where those egos can't take over, because that sometimes is a problem, when guys are used to doing it their way and they're not doing it their way anymore, and that can lead to dissent. But I think in this case, like he said, I've known both those guys for more than 20 years, and that's no issue there. But I think it is a sort of a healthy sign of a lack of ego if you can hire 4 former head coaches to your staff in one season, perhaps, because you have to feel pretty confident in what you're doing to do that.
Dave Wilson, ESPN.com, with us on 365 Sports. We off to the side, we were talking the other day, I believe it was in Vegas. When are you going to write that piece on Switzer?
I'm working on that. I'm planning on going to see him again, but that's still a little under wraps. We'll see how that goes. I just think it's fascinating that guys like Barry Switzer and people of his ilk are still around, and very much a factor in their towns. And so I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be a fun story. I think people will be interested in reading about what a 86-year-old legend is doing, hanging around his small town.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. I don't want to give that away, but I just wanted to give you a chance to visit with it. The Bootlegger's Boy was a big deal. I remember reading that paperback book, and good luck with that. So Dave Wilson with us, ESPN.com with 365 Sports. If you look at the Big 12, honestly, 16 teams, it's a huge conference. All of these are 16, 17, and now 18 teams. How many of the 16 do you truly believe have a chance to play for the Big 12 title?
I would say 8. I mean, it's crazy. There is, if you look at it, I mean, think about it, right? You think about a team like West Virginia that won 9 games last year. They had really close losses too. So if they have a TCU-like run where they win those close games, do they win 11 games? I heard coaches all over the Big 12 during media days talk about Garrett Green as a guy who is really tough and will beat you. He's a gamer. He's a winner. That's the one thing they keep saying. So you have guys like that. You have Oklahoma State, who obviously had a very perplexing year last year, blown out at home by South Alabama, got blown out by UCF, and then go to the championship game. You've got a team like Kansas State, who probably should have beat Texas last year and didn't. And, if Jalen Daniels is healthy, Kansas is a real factor. He hasn't been healthy for a couple of years, but he's a great player and stayed. Arizona, you look at Fafita and McMillan, the receiver. I mean, those are lethal weapons over there. And so, and then that's not even mentioning Utah, who's kind of the favorite. And so it's not a stretch to say, I think 7, 8 teams probably, if things went right or the schedule lines up, have a real chance. And I think that is what makes this conference so much fun. It's what makes it, and also these are places where you can still afford to go to games. You look at tickets for some of these SEC games, they're insane. And so I think for my money, the Big 12 is the most entertaining conference in America. And I sure can't wait to watch what happens.
Yeah, I'm curious on if they beat each other up so much because there's such an even playing field if you only get one team in the playoff because everybody else has like 3 losses, or if you're going to be able to, because of the scheduling, have a couple of teams at minimum that are able to get in. That's one of my big questions. But Dave, you were around the media day circuit. I know it's just talking season. There's not always a lot to pull out of it. There's some highlights here and there, but you were in Vegas, and what did you just think kind of looking around, seeing Dion in Colorado? The fact that we were in Vegas for starters for the Big 12 media days, Arizona State rolling around there, just a collection of teams, and in comparison to maybe some of the other places you went, just what did you make of the whole scene?
Well, I think for one, if you think about it, this was the first time in years that we were there, and everything was good. Everybody was happy to be there. There were no people that were kind of, issuing questions about their future in the conference.
Right.
There was a real sort of kumbaya feel to it. I mean, those teams are excited to be there. Arizona State, I was talking to a guy at Arizona State, and he was telling me about how they found out that they had an Iowa State alumni club in Scottsdale that has 5,000 members. And they're like, you know what that means for us for like basketball and things like that? And it's funny, you're finding these little pockets of interesting things of like, hey, we've got a whole new audience to sell our product to. And we're going to be playing some really fun teams and really fun games. And so that's the takeaway I took from it, was people are just genuinely excited. It's a whole new, you kind of take the top off with Texas and Oklahoma. Texas hadn't won too many of those conferences in the last, decade, but they were always a tough out. And then Oklahoma dominated. So you take those off, and now it's just wide open. That's what I took away from it was, wow, this is there's something interesting here. And I feel like in the future, the super conference era that we see, I think there's a place for this conference for pure entertainment value that is going to be hard to beat.
Say you said 8 teams have a shot to win it. What 4 don't have a shot to win it?
Well, I think Cincinnati is tough. That whole, that's it's sort of a sad period right now. I mean, think about the coaches that have come through Cincinnati, and they've all won there. Mark D'Antonio and Brian Kelly and, Luke Fickell and even Butch Jones had a lot of success there. I don't mean even in a rude way. I mean, it's just a lot of names. And right now, to step up in conference at the same time as NIL and the portal became a real factor. I think that was a real challenge for them, losing Fickell, losing a 4-year starter at quarterback, losing 2 stud defensive backs. Everything hit them right at a tough time. And so that one, I think they're still got a lot of work to do. I think Arizona State's got a lot of work to do. And in Houston, I love Willie Fritz. I think he's just an incredible coach. He's won everywhere he's been. And so I just think those are 3. And then I'm going to say, I need to see a little more from Colorado. I know they imported a whole bunch of new players, and there's all the excitement and enthusiasm. They have talent. But the offense, dumping Sean Lewis, who was actually, they were doing a good job on offense. They just couldn't protect the quarterback. But I think that was a talent issue and not a scheme issue. So I think that's one where that's going to be an interesting season for them too.
Dave, great job as always, man. Appreciate it. He and I used to cover JUCO basketball games, Masters, Jim, Kilgore, and others around East Texas, and that's how we first got to meet. Now he's with ESPN and has been a great writer. Dave Wilson with us on 365 Sports on Todd Graham, Dana Holgerson, and more, and some of the background on how that came about with Sonny Dykes and his staff at TCU.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting having Andy Avalos and Dana Holgerson in a back and forth, on how to best prepare that defense, and then have Kendall Briles and Todd Graham on the other side in another room doing the same thing, trying to best prepare. Or would it be, am I getting that backwards? No, it'd be Andy Avalos with Kendall Briles. No. Sorry.
Avalos would be with Todd Graham.
Yes, yeah. Todd Graham. I think I said it backwards, or maybe I didn't.
Kendall would be with Holgerson.
Yeah. So that's going to be no. He said it's backwards. He said it's to have the defensive guy prepare the offensive guy. Okay. So I think it's the other way around.
You know what's great is that Briles, his dad, was at Texas Tech. Holgerson came off of that. Remember that staff that had all of those
Holgerson
coaches?
will be with Avalos. Yeah. Graham will be with Kendall. And that's what they'll do to better iron sharpen iron. And I think that's going to be fascinating to have all of that insight. How much is not necessarily too much, but how much do you need at a certain point? You know what I mean? And I think they're going to find out, because I don't know what else you could add into that room when you got Sonny Dykes and Todd Graham and Andy Avalos and Kendall Briles and, so on and so forth. Dana Holgerson. I think the Frogs are going to be pretty well equipped when it comes to, the ins and outs of game planning and preparing for your opponent and doing all of that. So, I think that's a couple good and obviously very interesting hires for them.
Jed Drenning covers West Virginia and does a great job with it. He's their sideline analyst, and he's next to talk about the Mountaineers, who, of course, last year were one of the feel-good stories and a chip on their shoulder from back when we even talked to Neil Brown and at Arlington at the Big 12 Media Days. His thoughts about what's happening with the Mountaineers is they have now expectations compared to last year when everyone, picked them last and was an idiot. And then a little bit later on, Hans Olsen, who is a color analyst for BYU and also does talk radio in Salt Lake City, covers Utah with that too. He'll join us. A lot to get to today. And this, thanks for your time. Click the like and subscribe button. If you haven't, we'd appreciate it. It's 365 Sports. Dr. Kent Petty and PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Dr. Petty has special interest in testosterone replacement therapy for low T and currently offering immediate same-day access for lab screening to help identify those men in need. Some of the symptoms of low T: fatigue, loss of energy, poor sexual performance, ED, loss of even sexual decreased muscle mass and strength, weight gain, excess body fat, depression, moodiness, poor sleep, insomnia, poor mental focus. Go to PettyClinicLowT.com, click on the email and or phone number, and get in touch with them and tell them I sent you. Dr. Petty will then set you up to get your blood work, get the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Celebrate American quality and value during the Red, White, and Blue sales tag event at Richard Carr. Drive the best. Get professional-grade power and first-class interior in a GMC Sierra. Qualified buyers save $9,000 on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with qualified trade-in. Military and first responders save an extra $500. Plus, find Red, White, and Blue savings tags on vehicles all over the lot. Drive home American quality and value during our Red, White, and Blue sales tag event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
To Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter analyst, does an incredible job covering not just West Virginia, but also the Big 12, and he joins us on 365 Sports. Jed, I mentioned this earlier in the show, and Craig and Paul got a copy. Garrett, I think, too, what you sent us, that synopsis or preview with all of the data and stats and stuff with the Big 12 is like, just unbelievable. Thank you for sending that. And we'll get to some of that in just a moment. Last year, West Virginia had a chip on their shoulder, deservedly so, and they had a tremendous run. What did they use to fuel themselves this year?
Unfinished business. I don't think anybody's going to be happy with finishing in the middle of the league or slightly above it, 5th, 6th, being selected toward the middle of the league in the preseason. Why wouldn't we be? Really, there's no hardware to show for what we did. We got a nice bowl trophy out of it, but nothing to speak of from a conference level. So as we enter into what's expected to be a fiercely competitive Big 12, I like to think that our roster is put together in such a way as if we stay healthy, I've said this many times, there's no reason to believe that we can't be playing very meaningful football late into November and hopefully in early December.
Jed, offensively, this is a group of wide receivers that's maybe flown under the radar a little bit. People talk about the running game. Garrett Green, improved his passing last year. Do you think that the skilled players that are not in the backfield are getting slept on a little bit?
Potentially, but there was really no reason to get that wowed by them last year. I mean, when we gave those guys touches, we had some talent. It was young talent, as you talked about. Devin Carter was the senior spokesperson for that group. He's gone. So it was a bunch of freshmen, and we had to try and devise ways to get them the football, create ways, manufacture ways to give them their touches. And Neil and the staff did that. Now the hope is this year, what you're going to see is a lot more organic, and they can be getting their touches just in the natural flow of the offense. That's what we're hoping to do, because we're high on the talent that we have. Plus, we have a couple additions in that receiver room that we're really high on. We think that we have the personnel there to do it. We finally have this combination of length and speed in that room, and burst and twitchiness and all those things that it takes to win in this league. So it's just a matter of going out and improving it. Last year, we didn't do that much with it. They took advantage of the select list of opportunities they had, but once again, it wasn't in the natural flow of the playbook or the offense. That's what we're hoping it looks like this year. Garrett Green drops back, he plants his toe, he scans the field, and whoever happens to be open is a weapon that can make something happen with the football once they get their opportunity. That's what we're hoping it looks like.
Quarterback-wise, I think you would probably agree Garrett Green may be one of the more underrated players, not just in the conference, but maybe even nationally to some extent as well. Not sure if you agree with that or not, but in terms of the quarterback position, Nico Marchiol as well, getting the amount of playing time that he did last year, obviously a very highly heralded recruit. Just what did you see from him a season ago, and how can he also help contribute along with Garrett Green this year?
Well, let's start with Nico, and then we'll go to Garrett. Nico did exactly what you want your number two to do, and then probably more than that. He came off the bench stone cold in the backyard brawl, really managed that football game, helped us beat Pitt, upset all three Panther fans. So that was a big win for us. And then the next week, Texas Tech came to Morgantown. And when Texas Tech came to Morgantown, that was a program that for the longest time had our number. And so Nico got the start against Texas Tech. Once again, managed the game, superintended what we were doing offensively, didn't get us beat, and found a way to help us win 2 football games. That's what you want from your backup. Now, I do think this offseason you've seen Nico take a step. So if he gets opportunities this season, he will be doing more than managing the game. I think the staff's more comfortable with allowing him to push the football downfield, which that's really what this offense is set up to do. Punch in the mouth with the run game, go downhill, 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 then go play action and take your shots. So I think that Nico is probably in better position to run the offense that way now. And Garrett, we're really excited about Garrett, but I do think that he is almost ideally positioned. I like the fact that a lot of people are sleeping on him. You don't get any credit for any W's with preseason hype, right? So yeah. I like the fact that they're talking about all the other quarterbacks. And this league has so many to talk about, whether you're talking about Arizona or Colorado or Utah. There's so many high-level, high-functioning quarterbacks in this league. So I like the fact that he's not being talked about. There are certain elements of his game that need to be polished and refined. He spent the offseason mechanically with some of his lower body mechanics. He has a personal quarterback coach down in Alabama with quarterback country that he's worked with for a number of years. Neil and the staff have a lot of faith in that crew. So I think since January, it's been a long-term project. There were some things off mechanically last year in the middle of the season that the staff recognized, but it wasn't a short-term one-week fix. So Neil decided, hey, let's play the long game with it. Let's get to the offseason, address some of these things like throwing to his left, some of the intermediate throws. His footwork was unsound. So we worked to address that. I tell you what, in my podcast that I do with Owen Schmidt, we did a 2-episode breakdown of Garrett the runner. We did some film study, dove deep into the numbers, and then Garrett the passer. And I would encourage people to hop on our YouTube site at In the Gun and check out what we did with Garrett Green, because a lot of folks back here are really excited about it. But there's so much to talk about with Garrett.
I know this may not seem like I guess I'll just ask it. Is Garrett Green's toughness sometimes a weakness?
Well, Neil struggles with striking that balance, Smokey, and it's strange you touch on it. He said, look, we don't want to change who he is. He's a junkyard dog, and you don't want to completely say, whoa, 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 and back him off, because his nature is kind of his strength. But to your point, it can also put his body in harm's way. And his body is slight, 201 pounds, 5'11", 201 to be soaking wet. So that's the style and nature of what he does. And he'll jump right up and get in a linebacker's face, 40 pounds bigger than him. So he's not afraid. He's not going to back down from anybody. Now, what that does, it has this effect across the offense that when the rest of the offense sees him doing that, they feed off him. It energizes them. It's infectious. It really is. And they're picking up what he's putting down. So, yes, Neil wants to be smart about it and coach him to not put his body in harm's way more than necessary. But at the same time, you can't change who he is, because that's what makes him unique and special and different. The fact that he is willing to lower a shoulder. He had 14 missed tackles forced. And among quarterbacks in the Big 12, that was the most in the league. When you watch him in the red zone, guys, that's one of the reasons he's such an asset, such a weapon, because he's willing to become a physical runner once you get inside the 5 and push the goal line. So don't want to take it away, but these are also the reasons that we're always telling Nico, hey, better be ready.
Yep. Yep.
Jed, C.J. Donaldson's, one of those guys that when he can stay healthy, he is, a game controller, a road grader, and all of that. I know they have the plan Thunder and Lightning. Do you feel his injuries were more bad luck, or is this something also that everybody's going to hold their breath about?
Well, part of this is, too, he spent his whole life playing positions other than running back. And it wasn't until he arrived on campus as a true freshman that, stitched of necessity, they started repping him some at the running back spot, first in short yardage and goal line situations, and he became so effective that you couldn't keep him off the field and keep him out of the backfield. So the next thing you know, this kid who's never really played the position, much less tried to master it at a high level, was starting in the backyard brawl against Pitt. So one of the things that CJ has had to learn over his first couple years of being a running back is how to calibrate the blows that you take, how to take care of your body, how to really I'm trying to find the best way to explain this. It's a marathon, not a sprint. When you're taking that many shots at the power forward level, you're taking a lot of hits on your body. And there's certain ways you have to treat your body, certain ways you have to approach how you run the football, and you have to be smart about it. That's all part of the learning process, but part of it's bad luck too. I mean, some of the injuries he just couldn't do much about, but we are excited that we have him back at full strength. He's obviously a much different style runner than Jaheim is. And when you look at the two of those together, I'm not going to compare it to the 1946 Mr. Inside Outside Army team, but I mean, that's kind of what you're leaning into. Much different structure in terms of the skill set of these types of guys. So Jaheim's much more than a change-up. I mean, you can't really play him the same way that you play CJ because those two are just offering much different things.
It's an incredible reference, but that's a unique reference never heard on this show before, so I absolutely love that.
Blanchard and David.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like the talk of realignment always swirls, Jed, and I'm not asking you to get into the weeds of that so much. I was just curious, especially after your mention of Pitt, how much would West Virginia fans love or hate to be in a conference with Pitt again someday?
We would love more than anything what some might consider or others might consider. One man's trash is another man's gold. Well, when it comes to the scraps of the ACC, if in fact the ACC ultimately goes to the wayside, whatever happens with FSU and Clemson, who knows? This is so far above my pay grade, I shouldn't be talking about it. I have no idea. I'm just guessing and speculating. But let's say that the ACC falls apart and some combination of our old Big East mates, whether it's Virginia Tech and Boston College or Virginia Tech and Pitt and Louisville, we need some travel partners. Let's start with that. The regional rivalries would be unbelievable for us because right now we're the only team in America, guys, that for 4 straight years is now playing 11 Power 5 schools. Because what we try and do is satisfy the appetite of our fans with some regional rivalries. Well, the rest of the Big 12 is being pretty smart about it, playing one P5, one G5, one FCS. We're not doing that. We're playing a couple P5s because of the regional rivalries, whether it was Maryland, then Virginia Tech, now Penn State's our opener, and then Pitt. So from a scheduling standpoint, it will be much easier if at least a couple of those were conference games. So I'm all about it. Like we got on a plane last year, guys, and headed to Orlando to play UCF. I forgot how nice it was to stay in the same time zone for a road conference game. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Now we go Lubbock went from being our furthest trip, which is a pretty daunting trip, but it went from being our furthest to what's now our 6th furthest in the conference, potentially road game. So yeah, I'm all for some travel partners, and with Pitt being an hour and 15 minutes up I-79 from Morgantown, I'm all about that. I would love to see us back in a league with those guys. And Virginia Tech and Louisville and on down the line. But that's one can hope.
Go ahead.
I love that he is not afraid to pitch on the inside side of the plate against the Pitt Panthers.
And maybe even up and in.
Yeah, yeah. He's owning the zone there.
Chad, if you were to walk into a bar in Pittsburgh near the Pitt campus, or if a Pitt Panther fan walked into a bar in Morgantown, which bar of the opposite fan base is more likely to buy that person a beer?
Well, I would have to say this. If somebody, and let's say it's not Pitt week, okay, and it's just the middle of April, let's say, and somebody wearing a Pitt hat walks into a bar in Morgantown, I think people are just going to look at them askance. Like, wait, well, I never see those guys anywhere, much less here. I have a little sociological experiment that I put through. We spend some time up around Pittsburgh and the city around Christmas each year. Me and my family. My mom's from southwestern PA, the whole deal. But I have a little sociological experiment. As we're making our rounds to the malls and the stores and the outlets, I ask myself over the course of the 3 or so days that I'm up there, I'm going to count how many Pitt logos I see people wearing. Now, bear in mind, in the state of West Virginia, I can't go 6 feet anywhere in the state. I can't swing a cat by the tail without seeing a flying WV logo. I don't care if I'm deep in the coal field, 4.5 hours from Morgantown, or if I'm on High Street in the middle of campus. You are going to see flying WV logos everywhere. Anybody that's been around West Virginia can tell you that. So my record in 3 days in Pittsburgh is seeing 5 Pitt logos in 3 days. And I go back to this. Andy Van Slyke, when he played for the Pirates, he famously said, because he was played for the Cardinals in St. Louis, of course, that's the mecca of baseball in terms of fan bases. So they cherish their Cardinals. Well, he came to play for the Pirates in Pittsburgh, and he said, when you play for the Pirates in the city of Pittsburgh, you very quickly learn it's our Steelers, our Penguins, the Pirates. Well, he didn't even mention Pitt. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we have a great, long, cherished rivalry with these guys. I just wish they had a few more fans, that's all.
I love it.
Hey,
I love it.
Jed, tell everybody, you mentioned, is it In the Gun? Is that the podcast you said?
It is, yes. Thank you, Smokey. Shameless plug. It's In the Gun.
No, that's fine.
You can go on YouTube and check it. You can follow us on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast. But like I said, we're really proud. We spent a significant portion of the summer producing these 2 episodes on Garrett. And I do it with former Mountaineer Owen Schmidt, the Runaway Beer Truck. I do it with Wes Mueller, who works, speaking of Pittsburgh, he calls himself Pittsburgh's foremost Mountaineer fan. He works for the Steelers, but he went to WVU. He's from Mars, PA. Same high school as J.J. Weatherholt, by the way. But we have a lot of fun with it. In the Gun, check it out anywhere that you get your podcast. But right now with the Garrett episodes, there's a lot of graphics. It's kind of graphic intensive with the X's and O's, the breakdown. So there's a lot of that on there. But yeah,
I'd like to ask you
subscribed.
The attachment you sent me, which I forwarded to Garrett, Paul, and Craig, is that something that a fan can get a hold of or buy from you? Because I'm blown away by all the information.
Well, not particularly. Because
okay.
Here's what it is.
Okay.
I try and that's what I was explaining in the message. I try and source it where it makes sense. It's basically an expanded cheat sheet or crib sheet that I try and use for broadcast purposes. And so sometimes I'll extract and pull things from Phil Steele. And when I do so, I put the Phil Steele stuff on there so you can tell where it came from. It's much easier to have all your information kind of in one go-to source. Now, some of it, like, there's no off season for me. It's a 12-month deal. So what I'll be doing in January, I'm sitting there watching a WVU Hoops game on 360 or ESPN Plus. And as I'm doing it, I'm breaking down CFBstats.com field position trends for every Big 12 team. That's just what I do. I never stop. So through the entire off season, I'm putting material together, looking for trends or nuggets or interesting little factoids. And once I put that all together, I kind of disseminate it to those who might be able to use it. It's always different. Sometimes it's longer than others off seasons, and there's even versions of it that I'll share some of it with Neil. I'll share obviously with our broadcast team. But there's a WVU version. There's a Big 12 version. You guys kind of got the Big 12 version, which makes more sense.
Yeah.
The WVU version. But yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff. I mean, there's a lot of metrics and resource sites out there. Whether you're looking at Sports Info Solutions or PFF or CFB Stats, sports analytics, that really provide great stuff if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work and the heavy lifting to put it together. So that's kind of what I do.
Well, it's a great deal. It's awesome. I did see the part where you said the most recent conference titles, and I might use the nugget on that because it's eye-opening that some have had to wait quite a bit and some have not. Even though, like in TCU's case, their last was a share in 2014, but they played for the national title just a couple of years ago. Stretches of that happening.
Don't let Iowa State here and complain.
No,
they're still waiting.
Oh, I know.
Iowa State's still waiting.
I know. I noticed that.
You got to think Boyd Campbell's had him close, and he's pushing for the envelope again. But yeah, some fan bases have it harder than others. But it's always intriguing when you have so many new faces it's almost an introductory type element to it. I want to put it in there and make sure that I understand and appreciate the value of the new members. So that's one of the reasons that I do this. It lends some perspective to the greater history of the conference with the changing faces and changing seats in it. So again, there's resources out there that are readily available online. All I do is say, okay, I'm going to take that resource online and plug it right in my book here so I have it all right in one spot.
Were you on the sideline when Baylor and West Virginia had 70-63?
I was, and I just had a staff member from that Baylor staff, a defensive staff member, Cody Alexander, who runs, Cody runs matchquarters.com. Cody is just, he's a stud. He's a dude. We just had him on our podcast, speaking of that, a couple weeks ago. And you talk about, he and I just kind of left the host behind and forgot where we were and thought we were in a staff meeting with grease pens in our hand. And we were talking just crazy deep football and the shorthand and all those things. But Cody was on that staff, and he brought that up. And he said, Jen, I thought we were all going to get fired before we got on the bus. I really – but, hey, here's one back at you. I was also on the sidelines the next year when at Floyd Casey Stadium, Baylor was up on West Virginia 56-14 at the half.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, I said, look, I don't know what I'm going to see and not see here at halftime, but I want to hear. Keith Patterson was our defensive coordinator at the time. So I'm in the locker room at halftime. I said, I've got to hear what Keith tells these kids. So Keith got up to the grease board. He put the grease pen down, and he told him, he said, look, I can't draw magic up here. He said, you better find some pride because I think those guys want to drop 100 on you. And if you don't stop them, they will.
He's the one that said it was a catastrophic failure, wasn't it? Or a catastrophic result, or how that game. Yeah.
It was one of those games. It ended up 70-40, 73-42, but it wasn't as close, quote unquote, as the score might indicate. It really wasn't. But what made that worse? This was such a nightmarish trip all around. We left and went to Waco Regional to fly out on the charter after that butt whooping late into the night. I don't know, it was midnight, 1 in the morning. Who knows? It seems a lot later than it probably was. But we got there, and we were sitting there much longer than we normally do with the 14 buses or the 5 buses. And finally, word started to spread that TSA didn't have us on the flight schedule. They thought our charter was the next day. So they had to scramble a crew from Dallas, get them to Waco, and we had to wait 4 hours for this to happen before finally flying. After trailing 56-14 and losing by 30 at Floyd Casey, we went through this. It was what a nightmare.
Great storytelling. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Jed. Appreciate it. Anytime we can get you on, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline analyst, and also In the Gun, his podcast he does with Owen Schmidt. When we come back, Hans Olsen, BYU color analyst, also for KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, covering both BYU and Utah. He joins us next, and this is 365 Sports. Let the deals continue at Allen Samuels in Waco during the Make This the Summer event with hot deals. The 2024 Dodge Hornet RT, $4,000 down, puts you in a 2-year low-mileage lease for $245 a month, or a 2024 Fiat 500e fully battery-operated vehicle, $4,000 down, puts you in a 2-year lease for $245 a month. If it's luxury you want, Allen Samuels has that as well. Come and drive the sleeky, spacious Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. We drove one of those during our Big 12 media coverage in Las Vegas. It's amazing. Over 20 vehicles in stock available for immediate delivery. Don't want a full-sized SUV? Well, come get the best-selling SUV in the history of automobiles with the Grand Cherokees. Over 40 in stock. You're bound to find one for you. Get your low monthly payment vehicles, large, luxurious, and mid-sized SUVs. Don't forget about Ram trucks. They have half-tons and all-tons, some with 2.9% financing for 72 months. They also have a great selection of the famous heavy-duty 2500 and 3500 models. Also qualified for no payments for 90 days. Come see what they have. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas. Also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up, but should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Hans Olsen joins us. BYU Coloradolist, also talk show host for KSL Sports Zone, covering both Utah and BYU on 365 Sports. What was the main topic today with your show you did?
Oh, we've got a big story brewing up in Logan, Utah.
Oh, yeah.
Athletic directors being fired and coaches being fired, and a lot of speculation as to what's happening and who's going where. My son just committed to Utah State. He's going into his senior year. He committed as a big offensive lineman, and so I've got interest. Obviously, the Olsen name that's on the field up there, I've got a ton of interest in what's going on. So that's been a really big story. And then our BYU and Utah kind of camp breakdowns. BYU started camp today, boys. So we're in business.
They are picked, I think, at 5.5 wins right now. What would you put over or under on that?
Oh, I think that's a really good number.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really good number. I am interested to see what happens with SMU and Wyoming. They're going to have to at least split that to get themselves over 5. If not, have to go 2-0 in that non-conference stretch. They better just thump Southern Illinois. Like, don't let that be a game. But, boys, at SMU, at Wyoming,
yeah,
I played at Wyoming. Wyoming was 7-0 last year. Remember, they got, was it Texas Tech that they beat in double overtime last year?
Yeah.
They can put the hurt on people. So I'm currently going to go 5 wins for BYU, so that would put me on the under.
Well, Hans, let me back up a little bit. You mentioned your son committing to Utah State. Tommy Rock Olsen, as I saw in one of the headlines there. Just how cool is that? What's that experience like for you?
You know, it's one of the craziest blessings that I've ever had in my life. And I don't know, you guys have boys? Either of you got boys? Or
I don't.
No, I know.
Well, Craig on the show is my son, so yes, I do.
Okay. So you understand that point of pride. Whatever footsteps they might be following in, it's pretty incredible. And where my uncle, all of my uncles got to play in the NFL. I had 3 uncles that played in the NFL, and watching them on TV and watching Phil Olsen do Clover Club potato chip commercials and watching Orrin Olsen with the Kansas City Chiefs and then watching Merlin in the broadcast booth. And I was like, well, I'll give this a try. Now, I've been a second-rate bum compared to any of my uncles, which is fine. But watching your son want to jump into those shoes, it's a point of pride. And then having Merlin Olsen Field and having the legacy up in Logan, and as much as we love Logan and still have a ton of family up there, having him commit up there, it just meant everything to the Olsen family. It has been awesome. Hearing from Merlin's kids, obviously Merlin passed about 12 years ago, and hearing from Phil, and who played at Utah State, All-American. He was the 2nd overall draft pick behind Terry Bradshaw back in the 70s. And it's just been awesome, guys. It kicks up a whole flood of emotion. A lot of tears for me, actually. I'm an emotional baby anyways, but a lot of tears.
Are you more emotional than Kalani Sitake?
I'm more emotional, but I'm not a better dancer. I mean, that guy will dance on any sideline, and I've seen him do, that guy could do synchronized swimming. He does tandem dance. I've seen him do that ribbon dance that we see in the Olympics. He can do rhythmic gymnastics. He's flexible. Boy, he is a unique dancer, but I think I'm a little bit more emotional.
What do you think that the sneaky strength of the team will be?
Wide receivers. I think that's going to be your sneaky strength of the team. You got some big boys. You guys got a taste of Chase Roberts, and you know what he's about. I might be Chase Roberts' biggest fan in the state of Utah, just the way he plays. He is so physical. You had to walk on. You had that little scat walk-on stud, Parker Kingston, last year, and he's going to take a bigger role this year, and I hope he does. Darius Lassiter, who we just call him the circus clown, because that guy catches any type of circus catch you could ever throw at him. And I'm going to go wide receivers. It's a crazy thing, guys. They moved one of their wide receivers, Keanu Hill, into tight end. I guess he was just an eater. He had an appetite, and he started eating himself out of the wide receiver room and ate himself right into the tight end room. And he's walking around big, and they're expecting him to be a fantastic tight end for them, kind of take over where Rex left off. But I think that your wide receiver group is going to surprise some people. You just need to get somebody that can get them the ball.
So for a little while now, Fred Warner has been, I think, the best player from BYU as far as at the pro level and representing all that. And then here came Puka Nacua, and he has had an amazing, very short to this point, but an amazing bursting onto the scene of the NFL. When did you realize how good he could be, Hans, in terms of not just at the college level, but potentially do what we saw him doing last year with the Rams?
Okay, I'm glad you asked this, and I hope you got a couple of minutes on this answer, because there's some in-depth on this. But there was a moment a few seasons back, I believe it was Puka's final year with BYU, where Kalani's job was completely in question. They had lost some, I think, 3 or 4 games, and one of them was UMass and Liberty, and things were stacking up, and it was getting really, really ugly and questionable. And they were playing against Boise State. And any BYU fan that's listening to this right now, you know exactly where I'm going. I think anybody that's related to the program and knows anything about BYU football knows exactly where I'm going. Going into that game, it was is Kalani going to be around? Is this team going to be around? What are they going to do? Because this is getting real messy. Boise State had BYU at a 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, and they had the lead, and The clock was running down, and everything was on the line. And Puka Nacua gets pressed by this Boise State defender. But like this Boise State defender essentially grabs him at the line, maybe the 15, 20-yard line, somewhere in there. And essentially BYU said, screw it, we're going for it all. It's either a touchdown or not. We're not even going for the first, the touchdown or not. It's over, and the entire staff, I think, is probably looking for new jobs. I'm not kidding. Like, it was that built up, guys. And Puka Nacua is on a press, and he runs through this press, and he is fighting this dude like he is Russell Crowe in the movie Gladiator with a trident. And this dude's chucking that net thing at him, and somebody, like, they're throwing every weapon you could think, and he's hand battling, and he gets to I believe it was a post corner. I think it was kind of maybe it was more of a deep out. And this dude is still grabbing on him. I don't know why they didn't throw the flag 15 times before the ball was even thrown. But ball gets thrown, and there's no way this ball is catchable. It is out of bounds. It is probably 3 yards out of bounds. Somehow Puka, while the defender's hanging on him, does a complete 360, spins all the way around, tips the ball up to himself, keeps one toe in as he catches this ball with his middle finger, pointer finger, and his thumb, and finds a way to haul this in. Saves the coaching staff, saves the season, saves the moment. It is probably the greatest catch that I've seen at the college level. And right then I said, that dude right there, he could be anything you want. Like, that guy is full of onions, and I fell in love with him. It was one of the coolest things I'd ever witnessed, guys. It was really an incredible moment.
Yeah, and you're talking about saving a coaching staff, not to mention the moment you realized, and what a year he had last year in the NFL. So, Kalani, you're talking about job on the line. He seems to be entrenched at BYU, but there are expectations. There is a standard. We discussed this with him at Big 12 Media Days. What must he do, or what's the minimum requirement this year for BYU football?
It's 6 wins, guys. And I hate to paint that dramatic of a picture, but I'm a realist. And BYU just went all in on their basketball program, hired Kevin Young. Somebody leaked his contract numbers, which in the history of BYU coaches, fellas, I have never heard an actual number, ever. I played for Lavelle, didn't know. I did find out later what some of his contracts were. Bronco Mendenhall era, any assistant, you can't get numbers from BYU because of their private label. And somebody leaked out Kevin Young's numbers at $4.5 million a year. I can pretty much tell you the entire assistant pool doesn't make that with the football team. And I can't imagine Kalani's anywhere close to that. So they went all in, and you're seeing them. They're pulling in these 5-star guys, and they've become a real player in the college basketball world. Well, what do you think that would do to you? You know, I put it in terms with my co-host while we were doing the show. That's like bringing back Mike and Mike in the morning and dropping them in our morning slot and paying them $27 million collectively, and having us follow that up, and us looking around like, well, what's going on around here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's our expectations? What are we doing? And that's what the staff has got to be looking at. We have just seen the bar get raised, and there are some really good football coaching names out there that I'm sure BYU has probably talked to and probably making inroads with, that will cost you $4 or $5 million and would be a real progressive, entertaining, crazy hire. And I've got to imagine that entire staff feels it. So 6 wins, I think, bowl game minimum, and I don't know if it's a firing or if they just let this current contract play out, but there is no extension. He's got to do something big this year to really push their hand to force them to do something.
Well, you hope that BYU, with the Kalani, obviously Aranda at Baylor, among a couple of others, I'm not sure they can do the Neil Brown, West Virginia 9 wins, win a bowl game, but he was on the proverbial hot seat last year entering the season, and they raised the bar. All right, you also, with KSL Sports Zone, cover a lot of Utah. And Kyle Whittingham, loved his style. And consistency and just the way they play the game. Your thoughts about Utah? Is it Utah or is it Kansas State, or who do you feel like is the odds-on favorite to win the Big 12?
Well, this is going to be such an incredible science experiment to see how Pac-12 numbers translate to Big 12. And you talked about West Virginia, BYU made that trip, and so I was up in that booth and got to call that game, and I watched West Virginia dismantle BYU, just dismantle them. It was an impressive display of great coaching schematics, great game plan, good clock management, finding all the gaps and weaknesses, and I'm like, geez, man, this is really getting impressive. Iowa State did the same thing when they came to BYU right here in LaVell Edwards Stadium back on November 11th and put on a clinic. I'm like, oh, yikes. But Utah's numbers, guys, fourth in the country last year in stopping the run. And it's not the Pac-12 teams really try to run. And, they're going to get a taste of that Big 12 run game. And, guys, that the Big 12's got five of the top 15 running backs in the country. Like, this is a great run conference. And can the top 4 rushing defense hold up against the top 5 running backs in the country? We'll see. How much do those Pac-12 numbers translate when the Pac-12 was so different? It was so awkward and unorthodox and throwing the ball around, and you had 3 quarterbacks drafted in the top 15 picks with Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and Penix. And so I'm just trying to get a feel for what I see them do in the Pac-12 and what it does in the Big 12. But if it does translate, they've got the dogs to go win it. And so I do favor them over Kansas even. I favor them over Kansas State, Oklahoma State. I favor them over the top teams in the Big 12. I just know how physical they can be. And I think Big 12 fans are going to love the brand and respect it. They're just probably going to really hate the outcomes that they're going to see at the end of this.
Hans, you're great, man. We appreciate Hans is Olson with us, BYU, Utah, covers KSL Sports Zone. It's always great to have you on. Love your passion, emotion, and everything else in between. Have a great, great week, okay?
This sport is my life, and I absolutely love what you guys do and can't wait to be back on with you.
We'll get you, no question. Hans Olson with us on 365 Sports, former Brigham Young. First time I've said that in a long time, like almost a year. BYU lineman and now a part of the show a lot, and we appreciate his time. All right, we're not done. When we come back, Stephen Johnson covers TCU. The ACC media preseason poll was just released. We'll have that today as well. And also, not done because Chris Karpman covers Arizona State. He'll join us in the next hour, or this hour. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great dealer pricing, great customer service, and it's a great number of options when it comes to the vehicles that you want to take a look at and hopefully drive home as well. Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac is celebrating American quality and American value right now during the red, white, and blue sale at Richard Carr, which includes professional-grade power mixed with first-class luxury interior and a multi-pro tailgate in the GMC Sierra. They got Sierras on the lot, and it is the best truck on the road right now. Richard Carr loaded with GMC Sierras and all of that professional-grade power and first-class luxury interior and multi-pro tailgate for you to check out. Right now, you can save $9,000 on all new 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks. Those specific models, they're in stock with a 2010 or newer trade-in. You get that $9,000 off, but you can find various Sierras under the $40,000 price tag right now over at Richard Carr and find all of their savings in general on the red, white, and blue tags on the cars on the lot right now. So you can see all of the new Sierras. You can see the great deals when it comes to those trucks. You can also see all of their pre-owned vehicles, over 100 highly inspected used cars and trucks also on the lot to peruse if that's more of the route you're looking to go. But either way, for 25 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
Samantha DeBall TexasBeefHouse.com. Their online auctions through Bid on Beef is just unbelievable. So coming up on August the 7th and 8th, another live auction, TexasBeefHouse.com. You can go there. And also, Bid on Beef pops up. There's a catalog with all of the product available for what you can bid on to buy at what you want to buy. And Samantha, what will be featured this month?
So for the August 7th and 8th sale, we are going to have top sirloin, short rib, tri-tip brisket, and hamburger products. And also something that we are trying new is it is called a Thor's hammer, and that is your bone-in shank. So we're excited for that one to be something new to offer in this August 7th auction.
And don't forget the code number 365 Sports, 10% off any order over $100. And TexasBeefHouse.com also ships free to any of the contiguous 48 states. It's August the 7th and 8th. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com or Bid on Beef for more information.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Here we go, 365 Sports. Steven Johnson covers TCU for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Steven, thanks for your time on the show as always. And saw the note about Todd Graham, Dana Holgerson joining Sonny Dykes and his staff. Your thoughts about just building up guys with incredible knowledge and experience?
Well, I think Sonny's perspective has always been you can never have enough experience and never have enough smart people around on your staff. Graham's been a pretty constant presence at practice for the last 2 years now. I feel like I see him almost every day. He was there today, actually, as well, too. So, former head coach, won a lot of ball games. From my understanding, he'll be working with the offense, kind of explaining things, how he, as a defensive coordinator, would attack TCU's offense. And Holgerson will be doing the same thing. He was out there for his spring practice all the way back, I want to say in March, if I remember correctly. So, no surprise that he's joining the staff either. And Sonny always talks about when he, after things didn't go his way at Cal, he got his chance to be an analyst here at TCU, and that kind of allowed him to reset his career. So I think he's also using this as an opportunity to give those guys the opportunity as well.
Steven, so the plan is to have a defensive coach work with the offensive coordinator, and offensive coach work with the defensive coordinator. I mean, I don't know how unique this is because it all works differently, but it does seem like a pretty clever little plan.
I think so. I mean, and when you really think about it, it seemed like when you think about Nick Saban and kind of at the height of their run, it always seemed like they were hiring some type of former head coach to be one of their 20 or 30 offensive analysts. So I think, like I said, man, anytime you can bring in smart guys that have won at a high level, Holgerson's one of the best offensive minds in the game. Graham at his peak had some really good defenses. I think, it's a win-win either way. Those guys get the opportunity to coach, stay close to the game they love, and Sonny keeps to add two more bright minds to his staff so he can use them as a resource.
Steven, if you were to break down TCU's offseason in a nutshell, what do you think the main headline or theme for this offseason would be?
Excitement about the defense. The defense dominated in the spring, even though there were a lot of injuries on offense. Andy Avalos has a track record of turning around defenses, getting after the quarterback at Boise State and Oregon. And TCU, that was one of the main issues last year with the 3-3-5 defense. So to see what they did in the spring was a breath of fresh air. They have a lot of talent, a lot of depth on that side of the ball. On the flip side, I think with the offense has a lot of question marks. So the first one will be about Josh Hoover. The second one will be about the offensive line. So it remains to be seen. We're only 2 days into camp, but I'll be very curious to see how the offense progresses as they start going live and getting deeper into camp.
When we had Sonny Dykes on with us in Vegas at Big 12 Media Days, he gushed over Josh Hoover, but that's not the perfect project yet, right? Or not project. That's still a big work in progress, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he has the arm talent. He has the intangibles, and the intangibles, I'm sure, is what he raved about. They love him in that building, and they want to see him do well, not just because, obviously, it's their job to win games, but he wants it bad enough, and people want to see him succeed. But I think the thing, and Sonny touched on it the other day, is Josh's next step would be understanding and learning to be okay with the completion, be okay with the check down, and not always rely on that arm strength to try to fit those balls into those tight windows. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you necessarily have to. So that'll be his next step, and I think he'll also be able to show more of his mobility as well, too, just because they have more depth, so they'll be able to use him more in that area of the game as well.
They went and got Ken Seals as a depth piece as much as anything else, but I'm just curious, just throughout the offseason, if you've heard much on the freshman and Haas Haney. Not that he's expected to play anytime soon, but I just remember watching him, I think it was a year ago in high school, and as a tremendous player. Just is there any early talk about his addition?
I think he had a positive spring. He went through a lot of adversity getting those second team reps just because he was doing so much of it with walk-on receivers and guys who, won't end up playing in the fall. So I think that was kind of his first bit of adversity, and I think he handled it well. His talent is really supreme, and I think they just can't wait to see what he can become down the line. Obviously, he has a winning background at Alito with all those state championships, track speed, also has really good arm strength. His talent is evident. He just needs to get seasoned, and I think I think that will come over time. But I do think it was great for him to have that experience of getting those reps as a second-team quarterback in the spring.
What is right now, you say, the comfort level with Kendall Briles as he moves into another season with Coach Dykes and TCU?
Based on what Sonny said the other day, I would say a 7 or 8. He says the offense is a lot further ahead schematically than they were at any time last year. So if we're just taking it by his word, they seem more confident in the system, especially with the skill guys. But for me, the question still remains, you got all these new pieces on the offensive line. You got to see if guys can make it through camp healthy. And then, of course, you're going to have a brand-new starting running back with Cam Cook, who I like, but I think he only got 16 carries last year. So he's a bit of an unknown. You have talented receiver with Savion Williams, but this is a guy that has shown flashes but hasn't done it consistently. So now if you're TCU, you put up a lot of yards last year. You put up a lot of points on bad teams. Now I think for them it's about being consistent, starts with the red zone, and starts with that offensive line. Being able to assert yourself a lot more on the ground game.
Sonny Dykes is confident, though. We talked to him at Big 12 Media Days a couple weeks ago, and he seems to have, figured out everything they did wrong last year and addressed it. Now, again, you got to play the games out to see how it goes in the field, but there was certainly a different vibe, than when we talked to him before spring a few months ago. Like, he really does feel like there's something special with his team. Do you get that from him?
I think so. So the thing is, it seemed like after the national championship, if you pay attention to their transfer class, they brought in a lot of guys from some of those big-name schools that I don't want to say none of them panned out, but I think this year you kind of saw them switch their philosophy where they took a lot more proven players, a lot of guys that were quality locker room guys that had experience. And now you're seeing some of those guys that maybe weren't the biggest names on, some of the recruiting websites, but there could be potential starters. Talking about a guy like Memphis transfer Cam Smith, who got reps with the first team at safety. They got Caleb Elon's from Cal, and I think that was a big-time addition. Anytime you can add an all-conference linebacker to your room, I think that's a major addition to the roster. So they have a lot of guys they brought in that maybe didn't get a lot of notoriety on social media, but there's a lot more depth. We just have to see. I just have so many questions about the offense. Not that it's lacking because of talent, but just can they all put it together?
Steven, what's your verdict on the new uniforms? The update. They no longer have what I think a lot of people refer to as like the Black Panther collar, that very unique to TCU sort of a collar design, going a little bit more plain, I guess you could say, but they still got the black alternate and all that. What do you think of the shakeup they had uniform-wise?
Look, I think when you have their color combination, it's going to be pretty hard for your uniforms to look bad. But I think they'll look fine, especially once the players start doing the accessories with the cleats and the sleeves and the gloves. But it just really feels like TCU just lost something when they just had the collar removed. It was such a unique look. And even though the uniforms technically aren't that different, that collar just does so much work, man. It really kind of gave the uniform some pop, the silver chrome, the purple as well, too. Now when you see it, it's just, I don't know. They look like any other typical team. But like I said, it's a good color combination. They'll be fine. But it's just been so disappointing to see all these new jerseys revealed, and they all look like carbon copies of each other, or they're just straight up plain.
Yeah, you almost feel like they're changing jerseys now just to do it instead of
sell new jerseys.
Yeah, well, yeah, the merchandise and all of that. But some of these jerseys, you wonder how much they're actually going to sell if they're not something that people like or that has a little zip to them. I always thought that the collar that they had was obviously it was unique. It was almost like somebody that wore a necklace with shark teeth in it.
It's the Black Panther necklace.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And I thought it did separate them from most everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my mind, unless you're a absolute blue blood tradition, Penn State, Alabama, Texas, where you just have these signature looks, I think you should go for the gusto and try to be as unique and have your uniforms pop off as much as you can. That'll help you with recruiting. That'll help you stand out. But a lot of the people have theories that eventually we're going to see, I guess, ads come on these jerseys, which is why you're seeing them so plain and almost nothing on them except on the very end of the shoulders and whatnot. I guess I can see that happening. That's the only explanation I can see to every single team having the same exact jerseys, and the jerseys don't have as much personality as I'm used to college football uniforms having.
I have a theory that Nike just brought in a guy and his name's like Gerhardt or something, and they're like, oh, he's the fashion guy, and he's like, we are going understated, and that's what we are going to do. It's going to be stripes, and that's it. And they're like, oh, brilliant, clap, 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 and everybody's like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah, there's that. Maybe they were busy with the Olympics uniforms. They put their B team on the college football beat or something.
Gerhardt is going to hunt you down. Craig, did you have one more for Steven? Oh, I didn't know if you had one more question for Steven or not. Steven, thanks for your time. How much do you think is on the line when I know they have to play Stanford? That's a late game on the road in Long Island, and then UCF, and that's a conference game. How much is on the line, in your opinion, when it comes to the game with SMU this year at the end of September?
Well, I think for bragging rights, especially with the rivalry basically ending or going on pause, however you want to look at it, all these games are going to be more intense than ever now. The rivalry already took a step as soon as Sonny came over a couple years ago. So I imagine the intensity is only going to be heightened. You have SMU now. They're taking a couple TCU guys out of the portal. They flipped their quarterback, Ty Hawkins, a couple weeks ago. So I think there's going to be that narrative, and SMU now is in the Power 4 conference. So to them, you got to think this is their moment. They feel like to catch up to TCU or pull closer. I think they have a pretty good recruiting class. So it will be, especially if TCU comes into that game 3-1, or on the flip side, let's say you start 1-2 with losses to UCF or Stanford. Now, the desperation will be extremely high for TCU, or if you're on the flip side 3-0, SMU would love to deliver some payback, because as bad as TCU was last year, we all remember, they handled SMU, one of the best SMU teams in program history, with relative ease. So I know that will be on their mind as well.
Thanks for your time, Stephen. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Stephen Johnson covers TCU for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And another program that we're checking off the list this week when all the practices and workouts, et cetera, start to play themselves out. More tomorrow, then a little bit Friday, and then maybe one or two that we carry over into Monday. Let's see. We have Chris Carpenter. Let's do the ACC media poll before taking the break. So this came out. Why did this not come out when they had media days?
I don't know. I have no idea.
First thing, I thought it was like, did I forget this?
Maybe they did it there.
Their graphics makers were in court. I don't know. Maybe
there you go.
Full-time lawyers, part-time graphic designers. I do want to say before we get into this, an interesting trend I've seen, the ACC putting out a graphic for Katie Ledecky, who went to Stanford, and celebrating her as their Conference of Olympians or whatever. And the Big 12's done that with Arizona State, I think.
And
so
Marshawn,
they can't say that they are not guilty of it as well. But that was the ACC one with Katie Ledecky, because she's such a huge star. Like, that got really panned, and a lot of stolen valor responses in the tweets in the tweet responses.
Well, the greatest ACC game of all time was Cal Stanford.
Right, exactly. There was some mentions of that, actually.
By the way, I watched, before you guys got here, I watched Katie Ledecky. They had to go to the all-22 camera to get the other swimmers in the frame.
Yeah, I don't quite understand it.
Are we giving away something we shouldn't give away? Okay, go ahead, Craig.
I don't quite understand in watching her how she's so much better than everybody else, like nearly a full pool length in every race she's in, beating people. And I don't know how everybody else is grouped together. She's the only one. She's like, a mile ahead basically in the race. And I just don't know how she's that much better than other Olympians.
I wonder if the other ones get hyperventilated knowing they have to write.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but
and they just...
Like, it starts out, it looks kind of normal, and then, okay, well, she's winning. Okay, well, that's what, when you watch Michael Phelps, okay, he's ahead of everybody, you can see it, but you could see that, like, okay, if something happens to Michael Phelps, if he pulls a muscle or something, then this other guy from Australia or Italy or something could maybe catch him. Yeah, he can maybe catch him. She could have, like, maybe gone under for a second, lost consciousness, come back up, gone, bruh, and then finished and still won the gold by 10 seconds.
Yeah, and she's, in a longer race, so you couldn't do that in like a more of a sprint to, lap people. But when you're in that long marathon-like pool race, she just, a couple turns in, she just starts to separate, and by the end of it, she's already dried off and, like, got a drink, and the other people are still finishing the race. It's pretty unbelievable.
Like Len Dawson on a bench smoking a cigarette, waiting for everybody else to finish. Well, since we're giving away some of the stuff, Nooni Omat, from former Baylor player today, had 24 points in a South Sudan loss to the United States.
Yeah, they didn't have much of an answer for him when they played him a couple weeks ago either. He played well then, too.
Pretty good deal. All right, when we come back.
We didn't even talk about the standings.
The ACC standings. There, my attention deficit kicked in. They're FSU and Clemson. Not a surprise, the four teams. And then Virginia Tech got first place votes, in Georgia Tech. But there we go. Not a surprise who's at the top.
Somebody likes Boston College.
Somebody is from Boston, went to Boston College, and happens to work in the newspaper industry or website industry and got a vote for the preseason poll, because otherwise that makes
BostonCollegeSports.com.
Absolutely no sense whatsoever. But, yeah, I mean, Florida State the heavy favorite, although, not lopsided too extreme. I mean, Clemson with 55 is not shabby, although that's a pretty significant lead for the Noles. Miami expecting a really good year, but they clearly got a couple of blockades in front of them. And, beyond that, NC State, Virginia Tech, SMU is a team that a lot of people expect to be able to come in and make noise. So I think, Clemson, FSU are your autos that you just default to, and that's going to set you right pretty much every year. But certainly that second tier of, like, Miami through – like SMU really, and maybe UNC jumps in there or something, or Duke's really good under Manny Diaz or something like that. But yeah, that's an interesting tier 2, Paul, for the ACC there, and some teams that can make some noise.
Yeah, I think that Virginia Tech getting votes is not all that surprising. I think SMU, like, really, their schedule is not hard. Like, Florida State's their by far toughest game.
And it's early.
They've got a shot to go on a run. Clemson has a very tough early schedule, and theirs is easier late. But if Clemson falls behind the 8 ball again like they did last year, then any one of those teams behind them could really pick up some ground. And I'm very curious to see Dave Doran have a quarterback that is a little more than just, kind of a guy. So,
well, there's 87 first-place votes. Clemson and Florida State picked up 83% of them. But that's for a conference that we were told did not have a lot of media representation, or at least they don't have a blowtorch to represent who they are or fight for them, which is not your job. That's a lot of media. That's 100 votes, basically, that were a part of it. But there we are with that. With Stanford at the bottom. Where's Cal?
Well,
Cal's at 10.
It's way more than 100 because Florida State alone's got 81, and then Clemson's got 55.
Yeah,
but,
140,
closer to
like 160 or 70.
Yeah.
That's a ton of votes.
Yeah, it's not too shabby.
Yep. And Florida State, Clemson, not a surprise. Miami, that all makes sense. But obviously, Cal with 2 first-place votes. Is Ott the running back?
Yeah.
He can win games.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. Jake Spavital, I asked him last night about how he felt about the offense they built up that he left behind. He's like, yeah, I hope that they remember I did that. So he thinks they're going to be really good.
He had some role, and he's got to thank Jeff Grimes for some of what he's got and the whole domino effect of all of that. But, Stanford right there at the very bottom of, how much did their fans, of which – there aren't a lot to begin with, and I'm not saying that to take cheap shots at Stanford. It's been a line for decades because they don't have a lot of fans because people aren't smart enough to get into that school on the same basis that they're able to get into a lot of other schools. But to be moving across the country and then pick dead last in a 16-team conference, God.
They have students that during the football game are trying to figure out how else we can get to Mars.
Right, so maybe it's not a big deal like it would be other places, but gosh, you talk about looking forward to football season. If you're a Stanford football fan, you're just like,
they have a really good lineage.
They have a great lineage in football. They have a great lineage in almost every single sport. They're one of the premier athletic departments in the country.
We're watching a lot of their athletes in the Olympics.
Right? Right now, look, Katie Ledecky. All of that. They have that premier thing, but when it comes to the sport that makes the most money, again, they just don't have the enthusiasm.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because when David Shaw was there, and even Bill Walsh or whatever, and Harbaugh, they've had some success. Baylor picked up another commitment today, an offensive lineman from Copiah Lincoln Junior College. Kamari Landers is latest player to commit to Dave Aranda and that staff, and a big, huge offensive lineman. They can never have enough of them. Mason Miller's got to be happy.
Yeah, I would think so. That's an interesting uniform combination. I wonder if they're going to break those out and what those would look like without all of the graphic effects on top of that, the yellow, green. I'm curious to see those in real action. But, that's a late addition. And he's arriving immediately and getting to work immediately based on a tweet I saw from, I think it's Matt Zenitz over at 247, who had a little bit more detail on that. So we knew that they needed help on the O-line even still. And if you're looking at their weakness, it's the O-line, and it was at the beginning of the offseason, and it is at the end of the offseason. And so I think on the one hand, you're glad that they've added another body when they clearly needed depth. I also think you're a little bit concerned that they're adding another body on July 31st when the season starts in a month. And it's how much can you really get out of somebody like that? But he had some nice offers, Houston was one of his offers here recently. And there were a couple of others. I think Arkansas was another offer, South Carolina maybe. So they weren't alone in their pursuit of Kamari Landers. He was at Akron originally. So if he can come in and provide some size and eat up some reps and, throw some blocks out there, they definitely need all of those things. So, better late than never for Kamari Landers.
One quick note, congratulations to former Baylor football player David Wetzel, who's been working as the high school liaison in the athletic department with football. He is named to replace Hall of Famer and Walter Abercrombie, who stepped down as a longtime leader of the B Association. David Wetzel, that story came down earlier today.
Yeah, they had their high school coaches they hired when Matt Rule first got here, and Sean Bell was one of those, and he's now at Houston with Willie Fritz, and Joey McGuire was one of those, and he's now the head coach at Texas Tech, obviously, and another one was David Wetzel, and he was never an on-the-field guy, more of a, what would you say, like a support staff type of role?
He was a hell of a coach at San Antonio, Reagan, but he was not on the staff that recruits. He's not really, he was a liaison.
He's not like hands in the dirt coaching like McGuire and Bell were, but he had as probably as much, if not an even bigger role, because of all the stuff that he took care of off the field. And so that's kind of what I was getting at. So that, to me, means like this is a perfect job for him, I would think. I think this is a great job.
Former
and
Letterman.
Yeah, and I think this is, if you're the B Association, you're like, hell yeah, David Wetzel, that's a perfect guy for what we're looking to do. So, yeah, congrats to him and to them.
He could still do a lot when it comes to if there was a player that was getting overlooked somewhere in Texas, David Wetzel would have somebody let him know, along with a few others. When we come back, Chris Karpman on Arizona State from Sun Devil Source, as they, of course, are thought to have a team that's going to struggle this year with Kenny Dillingham. We'll come back with him. Thank you for your time. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We would appreciate you doing that. This is 365 Sports.
Celebrate American quality and value during the Red, White, and Blue sales tag event at Richard Carr. Drive the best. Get professional-grade power and first-class interior in a GMC Sierra. Qualified buyers save $9,000 on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with qualified trade-in. Military and first responders save an extra $500. Plus, find Red, White, and Blue savings tags on vehicles all over the lot. Drive home American quality and value during our Red, White, and Blue sales tag event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr. They have the truck for you. At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Chris Karpman covers Arizona State. We got to know him back when a lot of that transition or the possibilities were going on, and he's done a great job of reporting a lot of the transition within Arizona State's administration, too. Chris, thanks for your time. It's obvious there's like 5 or 6 programs in the Big 12 that are not getting much love at all, that not much expectations. Arizona State's one of them. There's others, too. If Arizona State was to somehow get to a bowl game this year, how does that happen? What will have to happen?
stay healthy, a much better turnover rate than last year, which was quite unusual, I would say. The defensive coordinator at ASU, Brian Ward, has had a lot of takeaways in his 8 or 9 years as a coordinator. Last year, there weren't hardly any. I think it was a little bit anomalous. And then much better quarterback play. That's obviously the most important position in the game. Can't really turn the football over. You have to be able to manage the team and sustain drives, pick up some scrambles for some first downs. I think the mobility at that position is going to be a lot better this year. Put those three things together and get a little bit of lucky, and you got a chance to get to a bowl game.
So quarterback-wise, Sam Leavitt is going to be the guy. They had Jaden Rashada, and he went off to Georgia. How much of a shock was that? Were they ready to hand the starting job over to him, or was Sam Leavitt really in the lead, and that's what precipitated Jaden Rashada going to Georgia?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of factors. Rashada had hurt his hands. He said it happened lifting some boxes when he was moving before spring ball. He wasn't able to practice in the first, not in 11 on 11 or 7 on 7 in the first 10 or so spring practices. Sam Leavitt, he's an athletic guy and has a pretty good upside. I think just those two things together made it more likely that he was going to be the quarterback. And the default nature of Rashada had really, going to different high schools, different colleges, being committed to different places. He's had a hard time sticking. Georgia's going to be a little bit different, probably understanding that he's not going to come in and play right away. So he'll probably be there at least a couple of years, and then we'll see. But ASU added Jeff Sims after spring ball. He had a really bad year at Nebraska, but prior to that, he's responsible for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns at Georgia Tech as a multi-year starter. So, you can't really rule him out at the start of camp, but it does seem like Leavitt is the most likely quarterback, and he's a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, top 20 or so. Quarterback prospect in the country, has a lot of tools that reminds Kenny Dillingham of Bo Nix, who he coached at Oregon, and helped him really develop and become the elite player that he is now. And so we'll see. There's a lot of development ahead for Leavitt, but the tools are there, and he's going to have to, as I said earlier, for ASU to be successful, not turn the football over and be able to manage an offense.
I don't think we've talked to you since Big 12 Media Days. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I was curious of just what your impressions were of the scene in Las Vegas, Arizona State. Obviously some familiar faces and a lot of new faces, and just kind of what did you make of the mix in this first year of this new Big 12, Chris?
It was cool. Being there on the field at Allegiant Stadium, more media covering the Big 12, a lot of these teams. I looked over next to when Arizona State in the breakout sessions or some of the players were talking, right next to ASU was Oklahoma State. And you had, as you guys know, an hour or so from a big city. And yet there were 20-something media members there talking to the players. And so just the excitement, the passion, how much it means to a lot of the folks in these college towns, I think is really cool. It's a little bit different. I mean, that exists if you go to Corvallis or Pullman, Washington, or Eugene, for example. But I think that sort of a culture permeates the Big 12 a little bit more. And of course, for ASU, we have really good access to media. And so I've been able to talk to a lot of those guys and the coaches even before going there. So more so, I liked being able to meet a lot of the Big 12 media and then see people that work for 24/7 Sports that I don't get to see very often.
Chris, August the 2nd, Friday, is the official entry day of the 4 new schools that come in from the Pac-12. They've already had press conferences, media days, and much more. The schedule's been released. Does that day come and go with like basically a whimper in Tempe, or does that mean much?
It was kind of funny. They had a pre-camp media session last week, and it was done in the football facility where they normally have a backdrop that has ASU and the Pac-12 logos and then some sponsor logos all blended. But they couldn't have that backdrop anymore, but they couldn't have the Big 12 backdrop. So some of the media relations people were putting up a totally different type of ASU only backdrop that we had never seen before. And those are the sort of behind the scenes things that you don't really think too much about. And they've taken all of the Pac-12 signage and the competitive, the fellow competitors from that conference. They used to be on the wall that sort of, or the chain link fence that had a mesh cover that surrounded the practice field. Used to be all over there. They got rid of all of that stuff. So these things have been kind of an ongoing transitional thing. And then when the fourth rolls around, they'll bring some of those things in and probably won't look too different to a lot of people, but there will be some clear indicators of the difference.
One of the most exciting players in the conference is going to be Cameron Scadaboo. And maybe people don't know about him as much because of the struggles, but he is electrifying. And now with some of the additions they've made on offense, do you expect to see them move him around a little bit more?
Well, he's in better shape this year. He's probably almost 10 pounds lighter. He's leaned out. Said he wanted to improve his quickness and his agility, and he's a guy that will strike fear in some defensive players because he's such a physical player at 215 to 18 pounds now. Real sort of a throwback running back, blue collar. He catches the ball pretty well coming out of the backfield and also lined up on the perimeter. ASU likes to move its running backs in and out of the backfield to create the different structures. And he's very capable of that. I also think that we'll see more two-back groupings this year because they added Rayleigh Brown from USC, who's one of the better athletes on the team, and then McCaskill, who the freshman at Houston had like 16 rushing touchdowns or something like that.
He was awesome,
the freshman of the year. Yeah, then he had the ACL injury going into his second spring ball. And then he really wasn't the same in the last year and a half. But he has one of the fastest GPS. They do the mile per hour thing with those catapult testing vests that they wear. And he was like a 22 mile an hour guy, like one of only a handful on the roster. So he looks like he's back to at or near full speed. So I think the running back position is a strength for ASU, and especially when you're younger at quarterback and not quite as good, the ability to get into some two-back groupings that give you some, the RPO actions and some quarterback run optionality. Those things are probably going to be calling cards of ASU's offense this year, with Scadaboo certainly getting a lot of the attention.
Chris, they have one of the more high-profile assistant coaches in the league, certainly with Hines Ward, coaching up the wide receivers, and I know they've had some attrition there. Jalen Conyers is gone, Elijah Badger's gone, but they got Troy Omieri, and Scadaboo can be a part of that as well. I guess I'm probably missing some names, Guillory, but what's the kind of feelings around Hines Ward early on and the room that he's inherited and is trying to grow and blossom?
Yeah, he's got a very dynamic personality. Just oozes energy, excitement, personality. The players have gravitated to learning from him. Of course, he's one of the best blockers of all time in the NFL. So he's going to bring that mentality to the group. The player who's really come on in a major way and will surprise people probably is Jordan Tyson.
Okay.
He at Colorado 2 years ago. He had the most receiving yards and I think their most touchdowns as a true freshman. But then in November against Oregon of that season, he had 2 ligament tears, including ACL in his knee. And last year he was not nearly back athletically. But this spring he was on the receiving end of more big play touchdown receptions from the quarterbacks, and especially Sam Levitt, than everybody else. And to be honest, it was comparable play to what we've seen in the past from Elijah Badger. So I think that he's going to really surprise people with his explosive big play capability this year, and maybe even be their top receiver on the team. Jordan Tyson is 6'2" and 190 pounds, and a lot to like about his game. He's got an NFL route tree. I think that Tro Mary is huge. I mean, he's 6'4", maybe 6'5", 215 pounds. Another guy who can go get the ball, big catch radius, red zone target. So there's a big play component. They return their slot receiver from last year, Melquan Stovall, who was a starter. He's a good third or fourth option. Jake Smith wasn't able to play last year. People will remember he was Gatorade National Player of the Year. Coming out of Arizona, went to Texas, did well early, had some injuries, went to USC, more injuries, didn't play, wasn't able to play last year as a second-time undergraduate transfer, but he's practiced really well in the spring and continuing on now. And I think that he's poised to have a pretty good season. You mentioned Xavier Guillory. He had a broken finger last year during the season that I think robbed him of his confidence and catching the ball. And it didn't look nearly as good as he did in practices. So there's a chance that he could also be a little bit better than people realize this year.
Chris, I want to give you some kudos. First of all, you know your stuff when it comes to ASU, and SunDevilSource.com is if you're an Arizona State fan or a Big 12 fan, it's something you should follow him. But also, I saw your note from, I guess it was yesterday. You wrote 70-plus capsules with background and scouting information on every scholarship player, 50,000 words. How long did that take?
Yeah, that's an off-season project that I undertake every year. A lot of people, there's this gap, of course, that happens between the spring evaluation and recruiting period, and then when camp starts, it's a couple months. And I basically write about one a day on average for that, 70 to 80 day window. Just a little scouting information, projected depth chart, where guys fit in, who they are, their background. It's very time consuming when you add it up, but I think it's a good way to spend that June, July period to prepare for the season. And I'm big on like going back, watching a lot of film, studying players, figuring out how they might fit in to a roster. That's I've rarely missed ASU practices going back 20 years now. All the games and all that. So it's just the people who are the super diehard passionate fans, they are going to find a home at Sun Devil Source.
Well, it's very impressive. We had Jed Dredding on, who covers West Virginia. He put out a major synopsis, and so you guys are doing some work. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for your time. We'll be in touch throughout the season, and have a great rest of the week.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Chris Karpman, SunDevilSource.com, with us on 365 Sports. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top five.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hello, we're finally here. The top 5 of the preseason top 25 on Paul Catalina's Top 5. Brought to you by Texas Beef House, where you use promo code SIGM365. I feel like I've said the number 5 quite a bit, so let's get right to number 5. Notre Dame. Very favorable schedule this year. Riley Leonard is a dog. I mean, he has got that dog in him. He really does. He's a tough player. If he doesn't get hurt on what would have been a touchdown drive against Florida State, which wound up being a no-points drive as the defense knocked him back, he doesn't get hurt on that drive. Although the play he got hurt on was at like a 10-yard loss on a sack, so we'll see. But if he doesn't get hurt and out of the game, I think Duke probably gets their first ever win against Florida State. As it was, the football gods intervened and said, look, this has never happened before, and it's not going to happen now. So unfortunately for Riley Leonard, he didn't get to finish that game. He's going to take this team to a whole other level. Marcus Freeman getting better and better every year. Notre Dame, I didn't have them in my playoff because I waiting for the bad thing to happen, kind of like the Cowboys. Notre Dame kind of lives there where they're going to be really good, but like there's always something that trips them up. Like last year, counting against Ohio State. Otherwise, that team probably winds up in the playoff. But if they count better this year, this will be a playoff team in Notre Dame. Number 4, Texas. All right, Bevo fans, I know I have them too low. I have too low. 4 is fine. 4 means that they're in the playoff. They're fine. They're fine. They're going to be great. It's just year 1 in the SEC. I think there's probably a dip on your schedule that you don't see just yet because of the, toughness of it, even though they did get a favorable SEC schedule. Quinn Ewers, Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, let's not mince words here. They're fantastic all over the place. Probably not as good stopping the run, which in the SEC is a big deal. But I still think they'll be pretty darn good at it. Just not 2 NFL studs good like they had last year. That just can't happen every year. Some teams just don't have it. Like Georgia didn't even really have it this year. We'll, again, talk about them in a second. Number 3, quack, quack, quack. My friends, the Oregon Ducks. Dylan Gabriel there as a veteran leader at quarterback. Should be super fun to watch. Evan Stewart, a big transfer pickup. Dan Lanning, one of the most exciting young coaches in the country. He, warded off everybody who thought he was going to go take any job, especially Alabama. And this is a team that will be very, very good. Look, in EA College Football 25, they're the best team. So if the video game creators are right, this is a team that should make a playoff run. Number 2, Uga. No reason to think that they should be anywhere other than in this region. You get to this point, and it's kind of leaning one way or the other. Carson Beck comes back at quarterback. He's going to be a Heisman candidate. Kirby Smart has built one of the best rosters that he doesn't, rebuild. He just reloads every single year. They're elite. I don't even have to go into why I should think they're number 2, because I'll spend more time on why I think Ohio State is number 1. They are, across the board, 11 starters on offense, 11 starters on defense, the best team, starter for starter in the country. Defensive line, linebacker, secondary, they picked up Caleb Downs, who was the best player available in the transfer portal by a lot of experts. Will Howard is a quarterback who's won a conference title in the Big 12. He steps into an offense that's even better than the one that he left at Kansas State. He's got the best, Jeremiah Smith, maybe the number 1 recruit at wide receiver in the last 20 years or more. This guy is as highly touted as Randy Moss coming out to Ohio State. Emeka Egbuka is back. Travion Henderson is back. And, they added Quinshawn freaking Judkins to that backfield. And Chip Kelly's calling the plays. Chip Kelly on offense, Jim Knowles on defense. Ryan Day has no reason not to finish the season as the number 1 team. None. Absolutely none. Ohio State should win most, if not all, of their games. This is a team that should be the best in the country based on the roster that they have. But you don't win these things on paper. But Ohio State, player for player, best roster in the country right now. And if that holds all year long, they're going to be a tough out. Well, we finally made it through the long journey of the top 25. Tomorrow, we start the top 10 teams that just missed the list. That is coming up tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow and Friday. And Smokey Craig and I are wrapping it up right now.
Yeah, we are. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. TexasBeefHouse.com, the sponsor of the top 5. And if Nebraska's not among the 10 that barely missed it, we're dead. You and I. It's over. No, they don't. Please don't. Don't give them any kind of. They don't need any kind of attention.
They're not. We haven't filmed that yet, but
they shouldn't even be top 50 until they win a game that matters. All right. Tomorrow, I know we've got 2 or 3 more of the Big 12 analysts Sam Kahn will join us from theathletic.com. Somebody asked me the other day about Max Olson. He's no longer with theathletic.com, but he has information soon about what he's doing next, which is a great opportunity. He'll be back on with us once that becomes official. Emery Winters working on 365 Sports tonight, every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd appreciate that, and pass on what we do with college football, and hopefully for you and vice versa, you for us. For Garrett Ross, I mentioned Emory, Levi Caraway. He sent me a text today wanting the Matt Rule signed Nebraska helmet, the picture of it. He was meeting with a big Nebraska donor. Not sure why, but I did send him that. Craig, thank you. Paul Catalina, thank you. I'm David Smoke. Triple Option tomorrow at 1. We're back here at 3. Have a great night. This is 365 Sports.